Well, good evening everyone. Welcome to another Flight Deck 2 Sim live stream. I hope you can all hear me okay. Let me know if you can't or you're having any issues with the audio. Today we're actually going to do something different than I did with any other live stream, and that is actually to do a whole setup from cold and dark. I've loaded up the flight plan from SimBrief, so we've got to do the whole lot just like we would do in real life. Flight is from Lisbon to Tenerife, live weather, performance, live time, so hopefully we've timed it to get into the sunset going into Tenerife. I'll take a brief intermission in the cruise for 5 minutes just to get a drink and stuff, but otherwise I'll be with you all day, and as ever I will try and get back to you with any questions that you might have. So let's jump on into the flight deck. So first things first, let's turn the battery on and get some power sorted, which will be underground services. Connect the GPU. There we go. That stops the battery going flat. And so I've learnt, because I've been testing this more and more, we can use this little boarding feature. So we can go start flight deck, so we get all the ambient sound effects in the background, which just helps increase the immersion. So that's on. We'll put the electric hydraulic pumps on for the first officer to do the walk around. We'll then check the ship's library to make sure the documentation is accurate and good. We can now do all the tests of the systems. Do the squib bottle tests, fault test, master caution overheat detector, fault APU detector in op as well. And then we do the fire tests too. There we go. Overheat detector as well. Just want to make sure on OBS stream that I've got the alerts. I've left the live stream will start shortly badge on, which isn't very good. I'm still used to all this new streaming stuff, guys, so you must bear with me occasionally. So the fire test's done. Now onto the overhead panel. Seatbelts on because we've finished refueling. Test attend. Make sure the flap indicator position matches the flap position there. And now down here, the cargo fire test. There we go, it's all good. Radio panel, turn the marker off. Move this back to VHF1. Turn on the panel lights as well. On the real aircraft here, there's a hand mic where we do PAs and stuff like that, but it's not modelled there yet. There's the emergency extension gear, so landing gear manual extension, which we're not planning on using today, hopefully. Check all the circuit breakers. If you bring your eye level here, if it's popped, you see a little white marker, which is very useful. Now onto the upper overhead panel, do the stall warning tests. Mac test, might have to wait a little bit longer for the AC power to be connected. This to align, or nav, sorry, which will align. We've got 7 minutes there till the alignment. And down here, checking the captain's circuit breakers as well. And that's what we call the safety inspection. That's the initial safety test, make sure the aircraft is all ready. Let's have a look at some of these comments coming in so far. Audio's great. Yes, I'm sorry about the live stream will start banner. I just removed that now after realising I'd left it on, which was a bit of a silly thing to do. Right, now we can do the pre-flight setup. So first thing I'm going to do is get the latest weather information. I tuned the ATIS in Lisbon here earlier, but it wasn't working. But I've got the latest weather here on my phone. Surface winds 330 at 13 knots, cav OK. And 32 degrees. It's actually very hot here in Lisbon, and the QNH is 1020. So we'll set the QNH, oops, which is here, and we'll set the MFRA, which is the height we'd accelerate in the event of an engine failure, which today is 1,380 feet, which is about 1,000 feet above airport elevation. There we go. Good, so we can pre-select terrain and airports. Normal, check the oxygen, which is hold down here. It's not modelled yet, but you get a little yellow cross there, which would tell you if it's pumping correctly. Main panel, turn all these lights up as well. Excellent. So that's the EFIS panel loaded, and now we need to load the FMC. So we'll move this here. And what we'll do, we'll get the flight plan, which I've actually loaded on here. In reality, we actually plan a paper flight plan. But, if we go into charts, operational flight plan, here we go. I've got the OFP loaded, so we can load it up using this. Get the routing information. which is just here. Oh, I've got Ortho 4XP installed now as well, so hopefully we'll get everything, some nice views on the climb out there as we climb out there as well. Just going to read some of the questions. Momix, can you please also show all the real call to the ATC during the flight? Yeah, I'm not on VATSIM. I've been doing some VATSIM flying. It's really different to real life, but I need to get used to that and do some streams on the livestream. This is the ZIBO mod, guys. Yeah, don't use the PMDG anymore. Just primarily use this. Josh Coolcut, don't forget to set mixture fully rich. I like that. Mike Jones, oh well, yes, you can move the FB, which is quite cool. So yeah, here's the routing information. You might not be able to see it. I am streaming in 1080p, but this is what we're going to input in a second. So let's load this all up. Check the registration model number, nav data. We've got the most up-to-date AirRec. We're in not Porto, Lisbon. I was in Porto last week though. Lima, Papa, Tango. We can now put the GPS position, GPS left, route, and we're going to Tenerife, which is Golf Charlie Tango, Sierra, Tenerife South, and we'll just put the call sign as Foxtrot Delta 2 Sierra. Right, now departure, we runway 03, surface wind is 330 at 13, so a little bit of a crosswind to deal with on takeoff, but nothing too bad. And the SID's going to be the Ligra 5 November. We can now put all the routing information in, which is just here. So it's going to be Ligra direct to Bexal. Bexal is the FIR boundary between Portugal and Casablanca radar. Up November 866 is the airway we're then going to catch. And that airway takes us all the way to Comba, which is the arrival into Tenerife South. And the arrival we're planning on flying today is the Comba 4 Golf. And we don't do things by half when I stream. We're not doing a boring ILS. We're going to fly the VOR approach today, runway 07, via the BAML transition. Now, just like in real life, what happens here, you get what we call a double route back, because the star terminates technically at Tenerife South, and you see how it goes back to BAML. So we don't obviously want to do that. So if you just delete that and just bring BAML to the top, that's the way we fix that. In essence, we'll activate it. Usually we'd wait to execute it till later, but as I'm on my own, we don't need to do that, and we need to stow the EFB, which I'll put it just in here. Got a ding, which I know means someone's done something. Let's have a look here. Charlie Smith, thank you very much for the subscription. Welcome to my channel. So that's the routing information loaded. We now need to put all the performance information in. So we've got 177 passengers today. Fuel is standard flight plan fuel. There's no bad weather really in Tenerife today. Bit windy, but nothing that really warrants taking extra fuel. So that's a zero fuel weight of 60.2 tons, so 177 passengers. I need a little bit more than 1.7 tons of fuel. I thought I'd already set that, but we'll do that there. Where's the flight plan? It was, I need 8 tons of fuel there. 8.0, enter. That's better. 68.2. Reserves going to be 2.1. That's off the operational flight plan. I'm going to use a cost index of 30 today, just to get us moving. And I can't remember what we're cruising at today. I think it was flight level 350. Excellent. Who have we got here? Bubba J Smith 1, subscribe, thank you very much. Welcome to the channel. Now charts. Let's just double check the cruise level. Oh Christ, it's all dinging in now. I need to get 2 monitors, guys. Mr. Inch, thank you very much for the subscription. Welcome. There we go. There's our cruise level, flight level 350, which you can punch in there. This is going to happen a lot. I'm going to have to turn the alerts off. Here we got now. Sir Zubelos, thank you very much for the subscription. Welcome to the channel. What was I going to do next? Yes, top of climb wind we need to get. Oh my goodness me. Who's, thank you very much. Welcome to the channel. And what I'm going to do is just turn the alert box off, and I'll have a look at the subscriptions as they come in later on. Right. To get to the next page, I think it was that button. I'm still getting used to all this Avi tab. Again, we have the paper flight plans in real life. Top of climb then, here's the wind, 1808 at 35 knots. So we can punch that into the FMC. Enter IRS position, I've already done that, so it shouldn't come up really. And the ISA deviation was +6 degrees. This just gives VNAV the most accurate climb on departure. Temperature, it's latest weight 33 degrees. Absolutely roasting this evening in Lisbon. Now, I've already calculated the performance. Loads of questions all the time about what performance calculator to use. I use the real one that we have for the company I work for. I've heard of something called, I can't remember what it is. There's some other one that you guys use, but it's pretty accurate from what I understand. But the takeoff thrust setting today is full 24k and an assumed temperature of 40 degrees, which isn't too far off the actual temperature, which should give us, oops, should work the slash. It should give us, it says on the OPT here, 94.1, 94.4. Well, that's close enough, so that's our thrust setting decided. And again, we would never do this on our own. We'd both do this with both crew members independently, but we'll do all the performance now. Set V2 up here, which is a 148 knots. Cool. So, that's it. The FMC is pretty much all loaded. We can now go onto the overhead panel and do our panel scan. So, make all the flight control spoilers are off, alternative flaps off, yaw damper on, normal, 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 auto, check the crossfeed valve. Want the wing fuel pumps on. Now we've got the tiddliest amount of fuel in the centre tank, just 100 kilos, so we won't turn the centre tank fuel pumps on, because you know what will happen is you push toga to set your takeoff thrust and then you'll get a master caution fuel low pressure centre pumps, and below 80 knots, so forget that, we have to do a rejected takeoff. So prevent that from happening, when we have anything less than a ton of fuel in the centre tank, we'll leave them off and just turn the centre pumps on until we get up to 10,000 feet, and then we put them back on. There we go, on. All this is good. Turn the panel lights up as well. Oops. Oh, that's really annoying. When you zoom in, when you want to rotate it, that's when it zooms in. Normal. Seatbelts on up here. Turn the window heat on. Excellent. All good. Cabin altitude 0. Cabin rate to climb 0. Trim on. That's cool, look. I actually really like that. I think that's the actual temperature outside, so that's what it would be saying. We'd actually, what I should do, because it is 34 degrees Celsius, do exactly what we do in real life. Let's put the APU on now. With the APU bleed, get some air conditioning. We'll put these right down to cold, otherwise they'll be moaning in the back. Auto open, cruising at 350. And land out 200 feet in Tenerife. That should be on steady already. Cool. Alright, that's the overhead panel sorted. Now we need to set up the MCP, which is pretty much all done. Now if I bring up the Navigraph charts, we'll show you where we are firstly. I don't think this chart supports... Yeah, there we are. We're on Terminal 2, right down here in the south. Taking off on runway 03. It's quite a short taxi today. This chart doesn't support the... moving maps unfortunately, but this is the stand number 205 taxi. We'll push back to face west, Zulu 3 and then Mike 5, full length for runway 03, and this is the SID we're flying today, Ligra 5 November, which is climb straight ahead until we're at 2,000 feet, and then right turn direct to Papa Tango 416, and then Mona, and then direct to Ligra. It's an RNAV SID, so there's no nav A's really to tune for this departure, so we just use LNAV. Stop climb initially, flight level 60, so we'll come look at that later as we fly the departure. So setting up the MCP, we just need to put raw data stuff, so we've just got the courses and the headings to the runway QDM, which is 026, simple as that. V2's already set and the stop level is 60. So the flight director's on now, order brake to RTO. Set the QNH on the standby instrument as well, which is standby ISFD, this is called 1020. And you can always tell when you've got the right QNH because it should be close to this amber bar, which is the elevation of the airfield. Moving down here, check the lower DU, stab trim cutout switch is normal. We've already done the cargo fire test. Well, imagine we've got the clearance already, something like that, 2405. Check the rudder and aileron trim. Lock, fail, and auto, and that's the pre-flight setup complete. So now routing's in, aircraft's pretty much loaded. This is the time when we do all the briefings with the other pilot. So the other guy will come in for the walk around. First thing we do is check the routing information is correctly loaded in the FMC. Hopefully it is. I'll trust myself that it's done. Do an instrument cross check, which I can do with you guys now. Pilot flying would read it. Pilot monitoring would be checking it, so check with the time, UTC 1645, QNH 1020 indicating 306 feet, minimum flat retraction altitude set, flight directors on, and the standby instruments are set. We then do a takeoff briefing. So today it's going to be a left-hand seat takeoff, runway 03, flat 5, noise abatement, departure procedure 2, which means we engage the autopilot at 1,000 feet and then we bug up on the MCP to retract the flaps on schedule. So that's what we do. Right, I've got the chat in the corner of my eye and I just see what Sparrow says. How much trouble would I be in if I have sex in the cockpit? Pretty much a light trouble if you got caught. I can tell you I've never did such things. Brilliant comment. I will occasionally answer some of these as we move forward as well. Where was I? I can't, completely distracted now. Yes, did the takeoff briefing. We then do the emergency briefing, so the captain would discuss what the actions would be in the event of a rejected takeoff. I can do it if you like, above 80 knots. We'll only call stop if we have an engine fire warning, engine failure, predictive wind shear warning, or the aeroplane's unable to fly. If I call stop, I'll simultaneously close the thrust levers, disconnect the auto throttle, apply max manual braking or verify action of the RTO auto brake, manually raise the speed brake lever and bring the aircraft to a stop, set the parking brake. And then lastly, the first officer would brief his actions in the event of a rejected takeoff. The captain would then discuss the actions in the event of an evacuation. Then lastly, the pilot flying would discuss the options in the event of an engine failure at V1, which I'll do now. So in the event of an engine failure at V1, we'll do nothing until 400 feet except to raise the landing gear of a positive rate of climb. At 400 feet, we'll engage heading select to carry out any memory items. At the MFRA, this height here will bug up and retract the flaps up schedule. Flaps up, no lights. Level change, will engage max continuous thrust, engage the autopilot, climb to the MSA. And if I check the chart, I think the MSA was 4,000 feet here. Let's have a look if I can find it. It's actually not on the SID charts here. If I find an approach chart, it usually has them on the approach chart. There you go, MSA in the north sector, 4,000 feet there. So that's what we do in the event of an engine failure. Taxi routing I've already discussed, the SID I've already shown you, so that's everything sorted there. And that's really it, guys. That's pretty much the whole pre-flight setup is complete. Okay, now once that's done, what you guys should be doing and what I should be doing, but because there's only me in here and I'd rather trust my actions, but I wouldn't do it in real life, the pilot monitoring would read this checklist, okay, the before start checklist, and then make sure that's all completed. Have I forgotten to... No, I thought I had the chart view on, which I still don't. So yeah, make sure you read this checklist now to make sure you got all the switches in the correct position. And then we get everything done up to this point here. So I'll be showing you when we'd be reading this checklist. I won't be reading it because I'm pretty confident with my actions. But in real life, no matter how confident you are, you always have to read that checklist regardless of what we're doing. So that's the checklist complete. We've got the APU running, and I completely forgot about our poor passengers, so we could do that, APU bleed, dual bleed, and you'll hear, here's the air conditioning coming on, so that should keep the passengers happy and all cool. And what we can do now is organise the pushback. So if we go to ground services, better pushback, pre-plan. I've already pre-planned it, so it's going to be pushback to face west, so I can just simply push enter to get that sorted.
Call me through the menu when you're ready.
Oh, I got the nav tech chart still in view, guys. Oh, sorry, I'm so bad at that. Really sorry about that. Oh god, I'm so bad. I need to get myself a second monitor to check this sort of stuff. Anyway, pushback's now complete. And now we're going to get the pushback started. Put the anti-collision light on, which will stop the boarding, which I think Audio XP is programmed to do. That gets the doors closed, and the cabin crew, number one, comes in, shuts the door, and moves the lock switch off. And now whilst that's going on, we'll request pushback. Awesome. So yeah, sorry about the charts, guys. That's the problem with having a single monitor. I've actually got my iPad, which has the Streamlabs OBS software on there, but it doesn't show me the screen, unfortunately. Only lets me do some basic stuff, so sorry about that. Okay, here comes the pushback tug. At this point we'd contact Lisbon ground, request push and start. Imagine that push and start's approved, so packs off, anti-collision lights on, parking brake is set, the transponder now goes to out off, and and then once that's done you would read this checklist here. When cleared for pushback, packs off, anti-collision light, transponder out off, and they would say the before start checklist is complete. So if you're interested, the version of the ZIBO mod I'm using is a pre-release version of the mod, which ZIBO's going to release as soon as this stream is over, so it'll be available for you. There's quite a few changes to actually the one that was released in 3.30. It's mostly tidying up some of the pitch modes like level change and VNAV, making it closer and closer. But obviously, remember, it's still, this will always be, I don't think, ever fully released, because there's so much that needs to be always changed and configured. But I'm so confident with the mod now and using it for my own personal training. I use it all the time, so yeah, no worries regarding anything and its realism. Yeah, a lot of questions about the CG. Now, the CG here, yeah, we don't use this function in the company I work for. 4.96, it's not going to be that. It's going to be about 5.5, which is what I've got, roughly set there. We use a load sheet to calculate that. Some airlines use this feature. I've never used it, so I don't know how it works. But yeah, we've got the stab trim correctly set for takeoff, so that's fine. So here comes the pushback. Off we go. Awesome. So once we're clear of the apron, it's just default scenery here, guys. Nothing special here. But I've got all of Europe installed now. Ortho 4xp, the whole lot, level 17, which is about 6 terabytes on an external hard drive, which someone in the community helped me install. So Web Maximus, I don't know if he's watching, he was a great help getting me all this installed, but it took a flipping long time to download everything. Right, so let's get these engines started. Move this to ground, and we'll wait until 25% N2 before we do anything. Let's have a look at the external view. It's a cool view. Awesome. Yeah, this, when I was simming 15 years ago for the first time, I had none of this stuff. It's just ridiculous what you can do now. Right, 25%, just missed it. Alright, try and check the spar valve. There it goes. Monitoring the spool of EGT, most importantly, checking for anything sort of hot start if the EGT is rapidly increasing. But that view is more fun. I wish I had that view when I was pushing back in real life. Awesome. So, start to cut out, monitor engine number 2. N1 should be about 20%, 406.3. We can now start engine number 1. Wipe out 6 terabytes of storage but no second monitor. Yeah, I know. I had the storage laying around. So
complete. Set parking brake.
Roger, parking brake set. Starting engine number 1.
Disconnecting tow. Stand by.
Yeah, I mean, I could get a second monitor, but I really don't have that much space on my desk. And at the moment, what I'm looking at right now, I've got my main monitor for my PC, I've got my laptop open, which is what I can see for you guys. So I do actually have 2 monitors. And I heard you can get something like a capture card, so I can move the streaming software, but I've got quite a beefy PC, so I don't know what the frame rates are at the moment, with everything running on this PC at 35 frames per second, which is fine by me. Right, disconnect hand signals, 2 good starts. Put the generators on the bus, oops, straight away. And we don't do anything now until we see the pushback crew. The Dutch Highlander. Before boarding, I threw some coins in the engine for good luck. Thanks a lot. Did anyone see that? That Chinese airline, there was an old lady that threw some coins into a engine for good luck.
Tow is disconnected and bypass pin has been removed. And signal on the left. We'll see you next time and have a safe flight.
Thanks, buddy. So that better pushback's quite realistic. We'll just see him move off. There he is. And again, we can't do anything until we see the pushbacks away, tugs away, and then we can get everything sorted there. So what I'm going to do here is, just before we do anything, I just want to check the Streamlabs, say thanks to anyone that subscribed in the last few minutes, because I have got the alert box off. I'll turn it off in the flight. Loads of guys to subscribe. Charlie Smith, thank you very much. Chicken says Zoomalus, Miss Syringe, Bubba GSP, Christian Mendes, Adjus. Thank you all very much for your subscription and welcome to the channel. So let's get everything started. Generators on, APU off, start switches are in continuous, probe heat is on, air conditioning auto, APU bleed off, That's all set. Flap 5 for takeoff. And let's do the flight controls. Full forwards, full back, left, centre, right, centre, and now the rudders. Full left, centre, right, centre. Recall, blank the lower DU, and then we check start levers idle, detent trim set for takeoff. And then, in reality, we then read this checklist here. So you could do that after you. I know the flow, obviously. You know, I do this every single day. But before taxi check, that's the flow I've done. You then read this checklist to make sure it's all working correctly. So we can now stow that. So what we'll do, just because I've got them all loaded here, and this is how we have the charts in real life. We don't have anything interactive. I'll go to Avitab Charts, close this. Departure, and I've got the parking stands. We can use this to monitor our taxi. So we're exactly here on Zulu 2 facing west. We're going to taxi Zulu 3 and then hold point Mike 5 for runway 03. So quite a short taxi, and the first officer and captain would have that chart open throughout the taxi to monitor the routing. That's essentially it. So request taxi, that's done. Release parking brake, do a config check, no takeoff configuration, warning horn sounding, or setting out 35% to initiate the taxi. Awesome. Yeah, this is. Oh yeah, who just said that? Default sceneries are beautiful, Fib. Yeah, this is just. I want to show you guys. Like, you can spend so much money on the simulator. I mean, I'm just running right now. It's in the description. Just X-Plane 11, some plugins, and that's it. Default weather at the moment, but I think I'm going to get the. I forgot what it's called now. There's a new weather program coming out, which I had on FSX, which I've been told about, which I think I'll get. Because the wind variability on the default weather engine is a bit dodgy. But apart from that, this is just default X-Plane 11. It's flipping fantastic. And Ortho 4XP, which is all completely free to install, pretty easy to do. And I'm not computer literate at all, guys. If I can do it, most of you can easily do it. Oops, don't forget when you commence taxi to turn these on as well. That's what happens if you're single pilot, you forget a lot of things. So, when we're taxiing out 15 knots on the apron, we'd now taxi up to a maximum 30 knots, but it's quite a short taxi, so we'll just take a leisurely taxi routing down to the hold point, and we then read the before takeoff checklist, which is here. So config is checked, flaps we have 5 green light for takeoff, stab trim set for takeoff, and then the takeoff briefing, which is completed by the captain. I'll give you that just as I would do in real life. So it's packs in auto, bleeds on, the V-speeds are set for takeoff, V1 143, VR 144, V2 148 set. The departure is a Ligra 5 November departure, climbing straight ahead to 2,000 feet, right turn, direct to Papa Tango 416, climbing to flight level 60. There is actually an emergency turn procedure here in the event of an engine failure. We'd route direct to an NDB called Lima Oscar, and then a right turn to another waypoint called Rinor to join the hold. So that's how we do the taxi routing there. So that's it. Before takeoff checklist is complete, and then here we are approaching Mike 5 for runway 03. So we'll just bring it to a stop there and just make sure everything is ready for departure. Awesome. Got a few comments about my real pilot. Yes, I am a real pilot. I fly the 737. I got about 4,500 hours. So yes, I do fly the 737 for real, and I've made this channel about 2 years ago to show some people what we get up to. And I used to fly sim years and years ago. So if you're not sure of my credentials, I'm sorry, but you can have an Instagram. You can see all the real pictures and stories I put there if you have any doubts. Alright. So here we are, runway 03. We now contact Lisbon Tower and we request or tell them we're ready for departure. We'd never actually say the words ready for takeoff, CRM wise, because if that word takeoff is explicitly the clearance given by ATC, so there's no confusion. So we'd say ready for departure. And just getting the latest wind in Lisbon, it's saying still 330 at 13 knots. So been cleared takeoff runway 03, surface wind 330 at 13 knots. And this actually has an automatic handover frequency after departure, but we're not worrying about that as ATC. So as we've been cleared for takeoff, we can put all these lights on. Strobes, LNAV, auto throttle, and weather radar for the captain. Transponder to TARA, there it is. And confirm we've been cleared takeoff runway 03. You'd say to the first officer, he'd hopefully say yes, we are cleared takeoff runway 03, cleared left, clear right, and then he'd read that checklist to ensure everything is ready for departure. Make sure the cabin's secure as well, and let's go. We'll do a rolling takeoff just as we would do in real life here, because they want minimum occupancy time in Lisbon. I've taken off from here for a few times, so we try and do a rolling takeoff where possible. At busy airports, they've got aircraft constantly streaming in, so we'll do that. We'll turn, set 40%, push toga, and get on our way. We'll start the timer now as well, so I don't forget. Cool. Actually, I think I've got, this is what it would be looking like if you were flight deck to sim passengers today. So you can see here, when you're in the aircraft, oops, see that's the problem, I've completely overshot the nose wheel, so when you're in the back it feels completely different, so it should be pretty much on the centre line, not too much, because it's quite a long aircraft, obviously not as long as a 777. Right, let's go, 40% N1, time has started, timing, toga set, takeoff thrust. There we go, takeoff thrust says indications are looking normal-ish, nearly 93.4%. There it is. Light forward pressure on the control column. Let's check. So we can release the forward pressure on the control column now. Just maintain your centre line rudder. Here's the wind trend vector coming alive. So I'm using a little bit of right rudder to maintain centre line. That's the crosswind pushing us across. There you go. Hand off the thrust lever now. We are continuing, rotate, keeping on the centre line with rudder, wings level, and we're airborne up to 15 degrees onto the flight directors. Gear up. And off we go.
400.
That's it. Just verify LNAV. Excellent. So tempting to look out the window, but I should concentrate on the flying really.
1,000.
Oh, there's 1,000 feet. We can now engage the autopilot, and it's NADP2, so we can bug up immediately to the upspeed. Let's have a quick look outside. Ah, spectacular. Here's Ortho 4x speed, it's a view I've seen before. Doesn't look so good because I'm quite low to the ground, but when you get a little bit higher, it looks very, very nice. Excellent. So we're above V2 plus 15. We can select flaps 1. Flaps up. This is one of the areas ZIBO's been working on. It's tidying up the way the aircraft reacts to pitching, wind level change at the moment, so it's a lot better than it was. Still a few things to tidy up with the flight directions and stuff, as you can see, but it behaves exactly as it should do. So there's the turn at 2,000 feet. Now turning direct to Papa Tango 416, which is an RNAV waypoint. Can now engage VNAV, set standard. We are now passing 3 for flight level 60. We can now do the after takeoff checklist. So, gear to up and off, auto brake to off, turn the taxi light off. This can go to auto, air conditioning and pressurization. Diff pressure is 1.0. Can start freezing the passengers, so we put them back to the normal. That's now set. And you then read this checklist. Altimeters, that's a cross-check by the pilot monitoring. Passing 4-3, flight level 60 after takeoff checklist is complete. And we'll just level off at 60 initially, and then discuss the further option to climb. Don't know if you can see the airport out the right window. There you go. So this is live time, live weather. It should be looking like this in Lisbon at the moment. Just about see the winglet there, it's cool. Okay, so going a bit high on the rate of climb, so just going to go vertical speed. Oops, just gone out to quiet, a bit late with that, that's realistic. It's Rage YT, how come ZIBO has straight lines and not curved? This is often debated in the forums. At the moment we only have the straight lines programmed, but truth be told, it is perfectly flying the curve. I'll demonstrate this later because we're going to be flying an arc, a DME arc into Tenerife South, and I'll show you on the chart. The aircraft is flying correctly, but I think there's an issue to do with how curved lines are coded. At the moment, the fix that there was had a massive impact on frame rates, but this is stuff to ask ZIBO. I'm just a pilot that tests the mod to see how realistic it is, but hopefully there will come one day, because it would be cool. Alright, so flight level 60 is the initial stop flight level. Let's have a look on the chart, see how we are progressing. So you can see here it would have turned perfectly on inbound to Mona at the initial climb clearance of 60, and after Mona it's 219 to Ligra. No nav aids to tune, but I will tune 14.8 as raw data, but this is an RNAV SIN, it's all raw data, so we'll tune that VOR anyway, 14.8. Oops. There you go. And you can see that the VOR is coming alive. There's the identification, Lima, India, Sierra. And we'll imagine now we've got further climb, so now let's just set something like 240. So set 240 checked, VNAV, and we've got VNAV out, should go straight to climb, there's no restrictions, but push out at event, N1 VNAV speed, we're now climbing with the climb thrust and pitching for VNAV speed. That's what VNAV path does in climb, or VNAV speed, sorry. So the speed it wants to fly is 271 knots, but obviously we have the restriction everyone knows, 250 below 100. So if we wanted to, ideally we'd request ATC for free speed and fly this one straight away because it's the most economic speed to fly. That's it. Let's have a look at one of the passenger views. Yeah, that's so spectacular. Ortho 4XP. Thanks to whoever that was that showed me and told me about this. It's completely free, unbelievable. Very nice. Cool, so next thing really happens is at flight level 100, and the further we get along the climb, the lower the workload gets, and above flight level 100 the workload really lowers, and in the cruise it's very quiet, so that's where we usually have our break. Have some food, catch up, and it's the approach, landing and turnarounds where we're very busy. Pokemon guys, so I just logged on 32 minutes after started, just in time for takeoff. Yes, I did a full setup from cold and dark, so that's why there was a bit of a delay getting on going, but just want to show you how to set everything up. So here's flight level 100, so now bugging the econ climb speeds, passing 102, flight level 240, we can do the pre-cruise checks. So fuel, we can now turn those centre pumps on. Remember we had that little tiny bit of fuel here. That won't take long at all to burn. We're burning 6 tons of fuel an hour. That's going to take about less than a minute maybe to burn, so that low pressure light will come on soon. Lights can come off. APU's off. Pressurization 2.5. Differential pressure is good, so we're pressurized and set. Forgot to release the cabin crew, so we'll do that now. And release the passengers as well. Recall, and that's the post-cruise check. Pre-cruise check's complete. And up we go to flight level 240. So I'll turn the alerts on now, so if I know if anyone's subscribed, I can see it there. Getting crikey, it's been quite a few in the last 10 minutes. Junior Livery, Marcus Fuhrer, Monkey Boy 1280, Super Sapper, thank you very much. And there's the master caution for fuel. We've just burnt, there you go, just burnt 100 kilos of fuel in the space of time. So yeah, you imagine, you know, just seeing what a 737, but you imagine a 777 or something like that. The amount of fuel these things burn is ridiculous. I've actually got on my logbook, I've got something called MCC Logbook Pro, and I've recorded, you can record every bit of information in there, like the amount of fuel you used, and well, I'll open it now and I'll tell you exactly how much fuel I've burned since I became an airline pilot. It's a scary number, but it'll be 20 times that if you flew a jumbo or something in the same period of time. Awesome. John Malone, my first time watching you live, training through my ATPL exams currently, and hope to fly the 737-800 within the next 18 months or so. Your tutorial videos have helped me so much, so thank you. You are most welcome. I hope you wish you the best of luck. You're joining the industry in a pretty interesting time. There's a lot of jobs available, even for new cadets now, and all sorts of schemes going on by airlines. So when I finished flight training, I had in 2010, post-recession. There wasn't that much going. It was more luck than judgment that I got a job. But yeah, well, good luck with everything, mate, and drop us a message on Facebook if you have any questions. chat again. How can you update the AirX cycle of the FMC? You will need to get yourself a subscription with Navigraph. It isn't too much, and for that you get to update all the AirX every 28 days, just as we would do in real life using the same software. The FMC routing I showed you is exactly what you'd put in real life and stuff. So I don't know how much it is, but yeah, Navigraph using Jeff's charts is a great little bit of software. If you don't pay too much for it, it's well worth the investment, at least, anyway. Cool, so let's check the progress of our flight. Bring up the charts. Hopefully I'll remember to close them again once I've finished. So here we are on the SID, routing towards Ligger. It's quite a long SID. All this information regarding departure. This is if you lose communications. Climb gradients, requirements, initial clearance, and the routing. And we'll get rid of this now. And this is our routing today. So we are going from... Oh, I forgot to turn the alert box on, so hopefully I'll now see if there's any subscriptions and stuff. Sorry guys. Here's the end of the SID at Ligra, and then from there we're intercepting the Upper November 872 airway to a waypoint called Bexel. Now for any of this in the UK, this is very much likely going to be your routing to the Canaries. I mean, I've flown to the Canaries, UK-based pilot, hundreds of times, done the Canary trips to all the islands, and we always do the same waypoint, either via Barrock or Bexel. And we're not actually on oceanic airspace today. We're quite away from the coast, but this is still within radar of Casablanca radar. So this is what we call an FIR boundary at Bexel. So we'll be with Lisbon radar, and then they'd hand us over to Casablanca, or I should say Casablanca somewhere here. So there you go, Casablanca radar from Lisbon, and then we talk to them all the way till this waypoint called Comba, which is the FIR boundary from Casablanca to Canarias. So these are all ATC areas of responsibility. That's what all that information means anyway. So yeah, we'll keep checking that route. Look, I even remembered to shut the charts off this time, so there we go. Right, just passing flight level 200, we again check the air conditioning and pressurisation system periodically for any changes. Let ZIBO know that the cabin altitude, needle light's not working, and the cabin climate. But diff pressure, you can see it's very slowly increasing, very slowly, and the cabin altitude's about 6,000 feet. So this is the very important needle, this one. This is the differential pressure between outside and inside. So as you climb up, you want to carefully monitor this at all times. Check the temperatures in the cabin as well. That's nice. 24 degrees. We typically leave them, this one on A, this one on U, this one on T, the letters. And that gives you, on average, a nice temperature all over the cabin, but it varies on aircraft to aircraft. So sometimes you set that, it doesn't work. Other times you set it and it doesn't. Right, we'll just go straight up to our final cruise level, 350. And when we've been cleared there, we make sure it's set there once, twice, and in the FMC 3 times. And then we make sure we're monitoring the international distress frequency, which is 121.5, which is there. And I've got we'll tune up the ATIS for Tenerife South later so we can pick up the weather. I only just realised you could do that in X-Plane 11, which is pretty cool. Who we got here? Pokemon Guide, subscribe, thank you very much. Unknown H and Tuan Hyang Nigyan, thank you very much for your subscription. Welcome to my channel. So, my latest tutorial, which I uploaded, I think it was a week ago, showing you how to use SimBrief operational flight plans. I hope you found that useful. I've actually loaded up into the charts, Avitab charts function here from, I think it's on the charts. If we press this, OFP, there we go. So we'll do some fuel checks en route, make sure they're all good. But in reality, you know, with the airline I work for, we still have paper flight plans, so we still print this off in the morning, and then we use pen and paper to log it all instead of using it electronically. So we'll leave that up, and we'll just periodically check the fuel en route. We'll go to the first few pages in there. Yeah, we go. We'll check that as we get to top climb. We'll see what the next waypoint is and make a check. But the ZIBO mod is well, I don't know. I think Twerks did it and ZIBO. The fuel burn is really close to the real aircraft, really close. So it's nothing to worry about there. We've got Bunting09, the volunteers, Podquang subscribed, and Darren A has donated $5, which is incredibly generous. I really appreciate that. Any donations made, I reinvest back into the channel. Okay, so I'll get some scenery. I'm going to get some better peripherals and stuff. So that's really kind. Certainly not thank you very much, that's all I can say. There's no need to do such things like that. And I got a weird thing come up on my screen. It was like a bunny rabbit's arse, so I don't know what that's all about. Awesome. Let's have a look at some other questions. Paul X3D, your video on the 737 helped a lot. Good. You're most welcome. I'd like to send my recall on one of your video comments. You mentioned that VATSIM was different from real life. I was just hoping if maybe you could just outline the ways which is different. Well, yeah, I can tell you how VATSIM is different. Well, firstly, it's a really useful resource for you guys. You know, you can use it and simulate as realistically as possible ATC communications. Now, I've done some flights on VATSIM and I quite liked it. What I'm not used to is the fact you usually depart, and depending on when you're flying, you have parts where you have no frequency and you have this Unicom frequency. Now, certainly within Europe, you don't fly too much oceanic airspace. I'm always in contact with someone. You have to request everything. So the idea of setting a lower altitude just on your own and descending is alien to reality. You know, we always have to be cleared. So yeah, I will use it, and I need to practice it as well. And I've used it on X-Plane 11 with, what's this plugin calling? It's Squawk Box, and all the aircraft livery are different. I need to download something to make the livery match, and if anyone has any, knows how to do that, you can send me a message on my Facebook page, and that would be great. But I found that I've loaded up, and then I just listened in on some radio, and all the aircraft weren't on the taxi on the runway. They were all glitching around. So, but I think that's just the reality of it. But yeah, it is it's a fun, useful thing. And I did a flight into Gatwick, which was quite busy, and I got some fantastic vectors from the controller, just like in real life. So that was pretty cool. So yeah, that's my kind of opinion and thoughts on online flying. So there we go, passing flight level 300. We put the angular bank selected to 10 degrees, so if ATC were to give us a radar vectored heading, it wouldn't exceed 10 degrees. We have issues at high altitude with something called mag buffet, low speed stall, coughing corner it's called, and you can get some high speed buffeting if you have a high angular bank. Now LNAV has angular bank protection inbuilt, so LNAV will turn to whatever's safest, probably in excess of 10 degrees, but we just use it at 10 degrees for heading select, if that all makes sense. So looking at some of the comments again, Cade Foster, does your airline require the autopilot to be engaged very soon after takeoff, or can you hand fly it for a while to keep your skills up? Yeah, the airline I work for actually encourages some hand flying, airspace permitting. So if you're taking off out of, Heathrow, Heathrow TMA, it's probably not best to be hand flying around there because it's so congested, bad weather, complex approaches, but certainly when the workload's high, for example on this departure we've just flown, it would be a great opportunity to hand fly. And certainly for the airline I work for, they permit that below 24,500 feet. So you can hand fly as you wish, as long as you brief it, and the other pilot's well aware that you want to do such things in the briefing. Yeah, no issue whatsoever. And yes, so I sometimes usually follow the procedure most days just in case you're the pilot. But if I just want to practice hand fly, I just say to the captain, yeah, do you mind hand fly? Yeah, no problem, knock yourself out, off you go. It's more fun, of course. But all landings are done pretty much manually. We don't do any auto lands unless we need to for low fog. So yeah, all landings we do manually. Pokemon Guy, what are your alternates today? Our alternate is Tenerife North, and I only chose one alternate, which isn't the most professional thing to do, but that's where we'd go if we couldn't get into Tenerife South. And like I said with my previous streams, I don't envisage to take any shortcuts with this, so if we have to go around in Tenerife because I am unstable, we will go around. I'll follow this exact stabilised approach criteria we need. If the weather is out of limits on one of these live streams one day, we will divert just as I would do in real life too. So that's the whole idea of this stream. I don't take any shortcuts, I'm just following normal SOPs and procedures for the operator I work for.
1,000 to go.
Cool, so 1 to go. Ooh, I've got some traffic there. Well, that could be interesting if I had all that turned off. I think I had to turn it on to test VATSIM. I had to turn AI traffic on or something or other. So hopefully that won't result in an RA. I've had one of those in real life, TCAS RA. Over Barcelona, we had an interesting one. I'll tell you about that later. So that's gone solid white diamond. That means it's proximate traffic, but it shouldn't do that. Proximate traffic is within 6 miles or plus or minus 1,200 feet, and it's well outside of the 6 miles. So. Cool. So VNav engaged. This is a little glitch, I think. I had this earlier, using reserve fuel. Well, we should be landing in Tenerife with 2.6, and the reserve fuel is 2.1, so that message shouldn't come up. And we only have fixed cruise speeds in the ZIBO mod. We need to get the data for the FMS for the cruise, so we only have fixed speed based on your flight level and cost index. We've got 302.781, and I think lead OFP sim briefs planned for 7.8 anyway, so we'll leave it at the default settings. Rodrigo Armex, what is your opinion on the ATR 72? Well, I've never flown a turboprop in my life. I think it's a good aeroplane. I'm afraid I can't really give you much more information about that. There's not many ATRs in UK airlines. Flybe have the Dash 8. There's a lot of those around in the UK. Awesome. So here we are, cruise 350. I've probably got a good hour and 10 minutes of the cruise, so again I'll probably have a break in about 20 minutes or so, just get a quick drink, but I'll continue to answer any questions as possible. Go have a look around in the flight deck. So this, as I said at the beginning of the stream, is a pre-release version of the mod. Talking to ZIBO on Discord at the moment. He's going to release this as soon as the stream's finished, so it'll be available to you straight away. It's 3.30 EF2X, I think is the name of it. So it's been, ZIBO's doing big releases then, and we test it and go, oh, we found this little bug here, or we found that little bug there. And as I said in my other streams, he's an absolute miracle worker. Sometimes I noticed a bug, told him, 10 minutes later he's given me a file to fix it. Just fix it immediately. I don't know how he does it. Incredible. So here we are over at the Atlantic Ocean. You can just about see, I'm not sure what that is actually. Is that going to be a bit of Morocco or southern tip of Portugal? I'm not sure. Well, I'm going to have a look at the map actually. Don't have this in real life, which is cool. Got a cool interactive map. Zoom out a bit. Yeah, it's just the southwest tip of Portugal there. So that's what I was looking at the window, and it's pretty much oceanic. We're going to be flying just to the left of Funchal and Madeira, and then our routing is a lovely routing, actually a lovely approach into Tenerife. We route initially towards here. This is La Gomora, I think it's called La Gomora. We'll follow this little stretch here, basically circle the island, and then Tenerife South, the airport's just here somewhere. Ah, there it is. We're landing on runway 07 VOR approach, which is quite cool. Right, let's have a look at some of the dings that have been going off. Cato Termic, Claudio Digitus, Gareth Shaw, Frank Chen, Rockcap, Ricardo Pavo. Thank you very much for the subscriptions. Joao Brits, why is the clock 1 hour early? So, yes, right now in the UK it is 6:24 local time where I am right now, and this time here is called Zulu time, 1724. So all aircraft that operated and all flight plans and everything to do with aviation is based on Zulu time, okay, which is the also GMT time, Greenwich Meridian time, which is never changes, it's fixed. And if they were to base everything off local times, it could get very confusing as you fly over time zones and stuff. So we base everything off this one time, which doesn't change. So this time doesn't matter if you were flying in Japan right now, they'd still be using UTC 1724, even though it's going to be late in the evening. So that's what that time means. So that makes sort of sense to you. Campia 608, have you ever considered trying the 733 face plane? I haven't. I know there's, so is it by IXG or something like that? I haven't tried it. I've heard it's very good, but any free time I get, which isn't that much, I just like doing testing for ZIBO. He's really helped promote my channel, and I've helped him out quite a bit, and it's just fun. I really enjoy doing testing and flying it and seeing my inputs make it work and stuff. And we've got some other guys that stream as well. They've got George, who's on the Discord. He's on Twitch. He does some streams too, so you can watch him. And there's quite a few other streamers that have some really good background knowledge on this aircraft. Anyone that promotes the ZIBO mods, you know, it's fantastic. It's completely free, guys. It doesn't cost an absolute penny, so it's just insane. You know, what you get for free is unbelievable. So yeah, if you're feeling generous, you should go over to ZIBO thing and just donate. You know, just give him a $1 or €1 or a £1 or something, and just pay for this excellent work he's doing. I don't get any of the proceeds, but it's just what you're getting for free. It's just it's on an unbelievable level. Hemak, can't pronounce your surname, I'm afraid. Apologies for that. How do you consider flight sim as somehow close to real flight experience, or is it just a game? Yeah, I'd say certainly this is, yeah, it's a game. With the fact you can buy it as a game. Jesus Christ, that's a TCAS R8, so I'd obviously have to perform a TCAS R8 manoeuvre. But no, X-Plane 11, what I'm doing now, I've used throughout my childhood when I was growing up as a game. I tried to do things as realistic as possible. Then I got my PPL, continued to use it to help that. Then I did my CPL IR. I used Seneca from Caronado for my instrument rating, and then I did my MCC training on I think it was what was it called? Captain Sim. Yeah, that was it. Can you guys remember Captain Sim? I did that on a 737-300, and then I did all my type rating on the PMDG NGX, and I still to this day use sims to practice stuff. And now I'm so-called an SFI, Synthetic Flight Instructor, so I teach captains and first officers for the airline I work for how to fly. And guys that have used simulators, I can usually tell who they are, because they have a better background knowledge. You can fire this up practice procedures all day long. There's so much you can do now. I mean, guys that don't use flight sims also have a very high standard. They study hard, but yeah, they are very, very good. I've only used X-Plane 11 for about a year now. Never been attracted to it, but someone said come over, have a go, try this ZIBO mod out, and I thought, wow, this is incredible. Like the way, especially the ZIBO mod, the way it handles, it uses the superior flight model X-Plane 11, so the way the aircraft handles is really, really good. You know, if I was to put full left on the joystick, you get the same response in the real aircraft as you do in the ZIBO mod. Pitch power settings are very, very close. Yeah, and it's just fantastic. The drag curve. I see a lot of people complain, oh, the ZIBO mod and the NGX is too slippy. The 737 is notoriously slippery. It's such a difficult aeroplane to manage in the descent, especially if you need to descend and slow down at the same time. So yeah, it's all really, really good. James Sutton, this is a good break from ATPL exam revision. Oh, tell me about it. I can remember that. Bristol Ground School, question banks, answering all those questions. Jeez, thousands of them. I remember doing all that stuff. Right, who else is subscribed here? We've got Boyd, Laughlin, Genero, Manafaro, Andrew Moss11 and Jiraj Jakubik. Thank you very much for your subscriptions. Welcome to my channel. So, we're approaching Bexal, which is the FIR boundary. Had we been talking to ATC in reality, we would ensure passing this, we would get contacted by them to hand us over from Lisbon to Canaris radar. If they don't call us, we'd call them, you know, asking them for a radio check. And if we lost contact, we'd then try and contact someone on 1215, but if you were completely distracted, they kept contacting you. After about 20 minutes, they'd eventually scramble jets, and then you get intercepted, which is something you don't want to have on your CV. So that's something you'd ensure approaching this in real life. Martin Grosso, any recommendation on the MCC course? I'm doing it at Virtual Aviation Cambridge next month. I don't know. I did mine. I did all my flight training at Oxford, and the MCC there as well. I've not heard of that one personally, but if it's got good reviews, I'm sure you get a very good course. out of it. The MCC is pretty cool, you know, flying the twin jet for the first time and stuff, but it's a really good preparation for what will inevitably be your first job on a twin engine jet aircraft. Oh, Petro737 coming in with a $1 donation. That's extremely generous. Thank you very much. I really love your live streams. I'm actually doing ATPL in USA, ready for the conversion Oxford, and I hope to become your colleague one day. I love your professionality. Awesome. Well, you're most welcome, and appreciate the little tip there as well. I wonder where you are at the moment. Are you not in Goodyear, are you? That's what I did in Goodyear. I think you have it at Falconfield now over in Oxford, but awesome. Good luck with your training, and hopefully I'll see you in the near future. Aviation 737 pilot, try not to laugh, and someone of a name's subscription I cannot pronounce. Thank you very much for the subscription. Oh, crikey, coming in now. Fabian Nabude Tank, Amy Print, thank you very much all for your subscriptions. So, here we are approaching Bexel. Let's check our progress on the Navi chart display, and you can see here, as we approach the FIR boundary, it will be with Casablanca radar. We're speaking to them all evening, and you know, we're just outside of Madeira there. That's a fun approach, Funchal. I should do that on one of my tutorials or live streams soon. And here's North Morocco. So you've got Fez all around here, Marrakesh. They're sort of places we'd divert. If we had to divert to straight away now, we'd probably consider, or probably turning around, actually go to Lisbon from this point of view, but you've got Faro, some quite big airports there. Cool. So, how far are we from Bexel? Another 3 minutes, so we'll try and remember to do a fuel check there. Good stuff. Robert France and Joish has subscribed. Thank you very much. Welcome to the channel. Mudzil Kakimi, how to start the engine using an air starter unit? Do you need to increase the M1 for the right engine to start the engine? Yes. Actually, I don't know if ZIBO and Audio Bird XP have implemented the air starter with the mod yet. If they had, it would be under here. Not yet. So yeah, you start engine number 1 first with an air starter unit, and then you push back, set the parking brake, and then you start engine number 2 using cross bleed down engine number 1. So you don't need the air starter to start the second engine, just the first engine. And you'll be doing that if the APU is inoperative, which it always is in the middle of the summer when it's 32 degrees Celsius. Sam Keeping, hi Flight Sim, just wondering if you did the modular route. No, I went integrated. I was in an integrated course back in 2010. Yeah, 2010. Back then, allegedly, the airliners were, or the airlines were more preferable to someone on an integrated course. I don't think there's any truth in that now, so no matter what training you do, modular, integrated, whatever course you take, it'll be the same. You know, you're looked at it exactly the same. And I wish sometimes I had gone modular, because I would have saved myself a whole lot of money. And I finished flight training school with a lot of debt, but that's just the reality of flight training. But it does get better. First 3 years are pretty tough, you know, but once you start getting a bit of seniority, it all gets good. Simon Sandstorm, how would you do a fuel burn calculation mid-flights? Well, good timing, my friend, because we're about to do one now. Because here we are, approaching Bexel at 17:35, 8 miles away. And on here, I have the operational flight plan. And if we bring up the Bexel waypoint, here we have the coordinates, our flight level, we have the total lapse time, all this other stuff, so we'll check that. So at Bexel, we should be 33 minutes into the flight. 33 minutes. Okay, it's just incredible. Like, this is the sim brief, which gives you the exact flight plan you get in real life. And the fuel at Bexel, so if we move this across, we should have 5.3 tons, and we should have burnt 2.5. So let's have a look. We've got 5.5 tons, which is normal because we didn't properly burn all the taxi fuel, and we should have burnt, I forgot what I said now, 2.5 tons. If we flick this to used, 1.2 plus 1.2, 2.4 tons, so 100 kilos off. Incredible. It's exactly what it would be saying in real life. Really, like, sim brief, what a bit of software you guys have access to. I mean, we print the sim brief, it's called Lido, we print the exact flight plan, and it's identical. There's no different Nothing different to the flight plan there. So yeah, simbrief.com, absolutely free. Use that to generate flight plans. You're getting exactly what we'd be doing in real life. Cool. So who else got there? Robert France subscribed, Daragish. Oh, got another little tip there from Als Amger donation. Thank you very much for the donation. That's kindly appreciated. No question, but really appreciate the tip. Any tips like that are reinvested into the channel, providing content for you. I must apologise actually, the last 2 months it's been a bit quiet on the channel. It's just been manic at work, and sometimes other things do have to come first. You know, full-time job, family, friends, loads of other stuff that's going on. I work, yeah, I've got a good roster, have usually 3 or 4 days off at a time, but sometimes other things do have to come first. I try and do something, at least something every 2 weeks if I can. I know sometimes it can be longer, but I think what we're going to do next is a tutorial on, I did a poll on the community tab, and it was quite close between deciding what to do on a live stream. It was between Tenerife and Salzburg. A lot of messages, people asking me to do the Salzburg circling approach and the Innsbruck one. So I think I'll do the Salzburg circling approach for the next tutorial, and I'll start a new playlist just called Challenging Approaches. So you want to send a message, I'll poll it. I'll say, give me a list of approaches you want me to fly. I'll practice it, fly it, try and match real world procedures as close as possible. Approaches like Innsbruck, the airline I work for, we don't fly into there, so I don't actually have any specific guidance on how to fly it. It's not as simple as just looking at a chart and just going, right, let's fly this approach. Like you get specific guidance on how to fly the approach, when to configure, certain things have to be done at certain points, and certainly with the NGX, the terrain monitoring, the EGPWS is really sensitive, so you always warnings or cautions flying to those airports. And if you get a terrain warning in real life, like on the 737, if you were to get a terrain train pull-up or a warning, it requires a mandatory terrain escape manoeuvre, and it's not best practice to ignore it. And I know it sounds a bit silly, I'm in a simulator, but I work really hard to show you exactly what we would be doing in real life with this stream. So for that reason I've been avoiding it, but we'll yeah, I think I'll try it again. I think the ZIBO's actually turned down the sensitivity on how the EGPWS works on the mod, so we'll have a look at that. Fizzo, what's the best freeware ground crew plugin? I'm asking anyone in the chat. Well, I think someone showed it to me, but it's called Better Pushback. That's pretty cool. You get you don't get all the passengers and baggage, just cards and stuff, but you get a little pushback type. Maybe there is something else. There was something called, was it GSX on the FSX, which I used when I started the channel. That was pretty cool. It increases the immersion, but you won't ever see so much stuff like that in the channel. I'm just here to show you what to do, but I will increase some immersion and other things in the future. Right, let's see what these things. Joe, $13 donation. That's awesome, man. Thank you so much. That's very, very generous. Keep up the good work. Yes, I will continue to do so. This channel is really a fantastic distraction for me, and I'm very passionate about it now, especially as I see how much it helps people. So yeah, really appreciate that, buddy. Thank you so much. Who else has subscribed? Subscribed Tiago, Kuna, Darren Abrams, something I can't pronounce, but thank you, and Kino. Very welcome to my channel. So looking out the window, I think that's an Ortho 4XP tile I think I've got for from Chow. I think that's what that square is. Not terribly realistic, but yeah, I've got, I don't know how many tiles it was in the end. It was about 300 tiles I downloaded. It took, the computer was downloaded permanently for about 3 weeks, but it's all installed, all level 17. Got a external traditional SATA drive running it. Plugged in there. I think it was 8 terabytes. Simon Stanford, what can you do with the little keypad panel that's above the IRS switches? I think you're referring to this, the IRS display units. I have never used this on a real aircraft to input any information, but if you're having issues inputting information, you can put your coordinates. So when you're on at Type Rating, we teach you how to put your coordinates in for the alignment. But it uses all this information to provide there, so you have information about your wind, I think it's true wind, present position, and stuff like that. But I've never actually pushed any of these buttons on the line, but that's your coordinates. So yeah, that's a feature of the aircraft. Another thing a lot of people ask on my channel is, how do you use this, the AC/DC metering panel, like all these switches? Again, it's not used on the 800 so much these days. It's more an engineering function. There's no requirement to monitor the AC volts. It's 115 volts, 400 hertz. It's pretty reliable system. On the classic 737s, I think they're a little bit less reliable with the electrics. But I've flown for 6 years. I've never had any electrical issues on the aircraft ever. So no, never checked the AC/DC metering panel in normal operation. Martin, are you using standalone throttles or integrated ones like on the Logitech 3D Pro? Yeah, I should put my hardware in the description below. I'm literally just using a Logitech Extreme 3D Pro with the little throttle on it and a pair of Cytec Pro Flight rudder pedals. That's it. The joystick I've had for about 10 years, I think, and then the rudder pedals I bought a few months ago because I did the engine failure tutorial and I needed a pair of rudder pedals for that. So that's it. There's nothing reliable. If I was to take a picture of my setup now, it's literally a PC, a monitor, a joystick, rudder pedals. I've got my laptop open so I can see your chat. I've got my iPad open where I can control the stream, and that's it. So it's like the most basic setup ever. It's pretty good. Cool. So guys, I'm just going to take a very quick 5-minute break just to get a drink. We're about halfway through the stream and then we get back to you. I'll continue to answer some more questions as we get closer to Tenerife. We'll give you a full approach briefing, flying the approach we're going to, and discuss how we're going to fly it, some of the things there. Please continue to ask the questions. I like answering them and try to be as helpful as possible. But yeah, I'll be back in about 5 minutes or so. Thank you very much for the intermission. Okay, so we are back and running again, thanks for that. Dog's been out, he needed a wee, I had a drink, and then this will take us all the way now into Tenerife. So 45 minutes into the flight, total time was 2 hours and 5 minutes or something like that, so approaching the halfway point. Over the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, you've got North Africa on the left, you'll have Funchal and Madeira on our right, just over the Atlantic Ocean. And if this was in real life, you'd be talking to Casablanca radar at the moment. Who subscribed in the last few minutes? Quite a few. Batu, Lucasville Source, Sids, Chris, Harry H, Tigris 1405. Thank you all very much. Welcome to the channel. Few questions. How do you finance flight school with a massive loan? Unfortunately, I wasn't one of these lucky people in a position to have anyone pay for it. So when I finished school, I was working at a supermarket for 3 years, trying to save up as much money as possible for the accommodation. I then had to take a loan out with the flight training school, had a scheme with a bank in Spain. That loan had to be secured against my parents' house, and then I just had to prove and convince them this is what I wanted to do. And it took me all of about 5 years to pay that loan off after flight training, where it was very difficult financially, but yeah, that's how it was all self-funded. It's some people are very lucky and be in a position to do that. Other people have to work very hard. I had to work extremely hard to get where I am. And I don't see myself as naturally intelligent or bright. Certainly wasn't the brightest at school. It's just, if you want to be a pilot, it requires hard work, dedication, and a passion. You've got to love it, really. But it's very approachable for a lot of people. I think a lot of people are put off. You need to have certain coordinational skills. You need to be a team player. You know, be very accepting of all people. It's very, very important traits. There's more to just being good at maths and science, which I'm certainly not. So a lot of people think it is. It's good to be knowledgeable in those subjects, but no requirements. Anyway, I digress. So just going through some of the questions from earlier. What is ADF navigation, and can you fly ADF with the 737? Well, ADF stands for Automatic Direction Finding, and we have an ADF installed. This is what it is, ADF, and it's when you tune it, it can tune to something called an NDB, which is called a non-directional beacon, which has been a form of navigation for the best part of, what, it must be 70 years? And it's still used to this absolute very day. Certain airports we fly into still have NDB approaches. So we now have RNAV approaches, GPS approaches, but you can still fly on any aircraft, even the 7-8 modern aircraft, they still have an ADF tuner. You can still fly an old school NDB approach with that. So that's what ADF is. Have I got a tutorial on how to fly an NDB approach? I think I have. It's under... It's basically a lot of confusion amongst the community, and rightfully so, because I wasn't too sure as well before I became an airline pilot. On an aircraft like the 737 with an FMS, which has all the approaches coded, we could select NDB approach, VOR approach, whatever, and just use LNAV, and it's coded in the FMS, and just use LNAV, just following the magenta line essentially. What you must do is ensure that if it is a VOR NDB approach, that you actually have that beacon tuned as a backup, so if you were to lose the FMC, you could still fly it conventionally. And we still train pilots how to fly without the FMC, so how to fly an NDB approach. And I think that would be worthwhile showing you. You know, what we'll do, we'll set up an approach and actually fly it in, not an LNAV, VNAV, we'll use heading select and vertical speed, and it's old school instrument ratings stuff, so we fly VOR, we can put this to VOR if it's a VOR approach, centre. For those of you who are not in the know, but when you instrument flying, we have these things called push the head, pull the tail, when you have the needle. And I'll show you how to do that. We'll fly an old school VOR approach that way. So we train how to do that too. But yes, I've just seen the comments, I do have an NDB approach tutorial, but using LNAV and VNAV. It was into one of the Canary Islands, La Palma, so you can see exactly how we'd flight in reality. Stuart Walsh, the UK is obsessed with antiquated NDBs. You're quite right. Actually, yeah, where I'm based, we still have NDB approaches available. Just can't let go. Jacob McGregor, what things are upcoming or missing from the ZIBO that might be added? So there'll always be things added. Not just ZIBO, Audio Bird XP, he's very active, and there's some other people I'm in chat away in Discord I'm in. I don't have much involvement with that. I'm just testing, but I think they're doing a lot of things to the interior cabin. We're still further enhancing in the way LNAV and VNAV works. It's been a lot of fixes in the last week, which, as I said at the start of the stream, as soon as this stream is over, as soon as I've landed, ZIBO is going to release the version I am currently using for you to test and fly. So there's a few features from the basic 3.30 which he released. It's a lot of changes to the way the automation works and level change and VNAV, which it was behaving a little bit aggressively before. It's been fine-tuned a bit there. Still a bit quirky, but it always will be. That's what a part of me loves flying this mod. I like finding little things to fix, but on the whole, it's, yeah, I follow normal SOPs and procedures, and it reacts incredibly well, especially on non-position approaches now using VNAV. That was when I started using the mod. It had didn't work terribly well, but now it works pretty much perfectly, as we'll see later, because we're going to fly the VOR approach into Tenerife today. Cool, so we can do another fuel check. Overhead Q-bill. Charts. There we go, Q-bill. So pretty much overhead. We should be 50 minutes into the flight. 51 minutes. Well, we have only just overflown it. 4.6 tons of fuel. We've got 4.8 and 3.1 turns burned. 3.1. There you go. Incredible. Very, very good. And we just do that every 30 minutes or so, make sure everything's on track. If the fuel is less and decreasing, that would suspect a fuel leak. Very unlikely on 737, but you never know. That's why we do it. Always safety is of paramount importance. And times we keep logging as well. Just to show you, I don't know how accurate the wind is today, but let's check the flight plan wind at Q-bill. 099 at 22. It's currently 110 at 23. So they use the exact same data and information streams that the airlines use, so yeah, the timings generally are incredibly accurate, stay within a couple of minutes. Victor, Jovan, Avidor, hello from Brazil. Buenas tardes to you too, my friend. Welcome to the stream. Soki, what is an altimeter? Well, an altimeter measures your height. In this case, it's measuring the height based on standard, which is 1013, which all airlines fly above the transition altitude to ensure that we're all at the same place at the right time, because if everyone's flying on a QNH, we'd hit each other or get TCAS RAs all the time. And it measures the height above a reference. QNH in Europe, that's what we use. Americans use hectopascal, inches of mercury, sorry. So yeah, Wikipedia would be your best resource on that, learning some of the basics. Martin R, can you do astronavigation using the sextant or dead reckoning for navigation? Well, dead reckoning we did at the PPL level, but certainly not in this aviation. I've never picked up a sextant in my life. I think the RAF and Air Forces still teach that. We've got a good family friend who was a navigator in the RAF, and he was taught how to use a sextant to navigate using the stars. And some of the old Air Force aircraft had a dome on the roof, the old Canberras, so they could use the stars to navigate, but and they were actually a very accurate way of navigating too, but in this day and age, no requirement for that with all the gizmos we have. Awesome, so how long have we got until top of drop? 1837, so about 40 minutes or so. And here's the start of the Canary Islands. So this is Lanzarote, Fuerteventura, Tenerife North, Las Palmas. GC is the code for the Canaries, GM is for Morocco, LP is the code for Portugal. So all the first 2 letters represent the country. So in the UK, EG. We'll start with EG. Massimo, $25. Incredible. That's very kind. Tuition payment. Thank you. That's fine. Yeah, that's very generous, buddy. Yeah, thank you very much for that. Yeah, Massimo's been following me from a very long time. He often sends a few questions in asking. So, yeah, if you guys ever have any questions, send them my way. I do, as I've said lots of times before, I do read them. I get a lot of questions now. I don't always have the time to reply to all of them. I get a lot of the same questions too. So certainly on some of the YouTube tutorials, if you just take a second to scroll and use a search, you might find the questions already been answered. But yeah, basically, I do read. So I've got Instagram. If you look on the channel, the video description below, you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Instagram's quite cool because it's got a cool story function. So if I get a chance to take a little story from the aircraft, I've got some fun system facts and stuff about it. It's all 737 based, so that's all I know how to fly basically. If I was to jump in a light aircraft now, I wouldn't have a clue what to do, genuinely. Genuinely. Well, I think I'd have a rough idea, but yeah, it'll always be based around this aircraft, which is, I think, the most popular aircraft, and that's why I chose to fly for the airline I work for, because I had the choice to fly this or an Airbus. I got through airlines which flew both aircraft, and I just really wanted to fly the 737 because Boeing's philosophy, you know, big control column, ergonomic thrust lever, grab it, you're flying the airplane. Airbus, not to diss the Airbus at all, you're never fully flying that airplane. You know, it's like using control wheel steering. You're flying an autopilot through the aircraft. This is just, in essence, when you disconnect everything, it is stick and rudder. Not that you use the rudder to coordinate turns of the 737, but it's the proper pilot's airplane. Sorry, all Airbus users. Catby, yes, I did RNAV approaches successfully recently thanks to your tutorials. Cool, glad that helped. I think I've got a couple now. I've got one on the NGX, did one in the ZIBO mod as well. So yeah, they're pretty, well, I say they're pretty popular approaches. Still by far the most common is an ILS approach. I don't frequently fly RNAV approaches, but they do come in quite a few times. Everyone that's subscribed in the last 5 minutes, thanks very much. Mr. Supercat, Sergio Fernandez Jimenez, Time Lord Flights. That is a fantastic name for a channel. Welcome anyway. Race Erasmus coming in with I think that's Swedish currency. You have to remind me, that's really generous, 20 SEK. I'm not sure what that is in British pounds or euros, but that's very generous nonetheless. Thank you so much. Hello there, loving the videos. Keep it up. You're most welcome, Race Erasmus. Thank you so much for the tip. Namboozle UK, have you tried Airbus mode on the ZIBO mod yet? Control wheel steering. Very, very knowledgeable. So yeah, control wheel steering, I need to do a tutorial on this. I have never used this on a line flight ever, but by pushing this, it essentially turns the 737 into an Airbus. You manipulate the autopilot using the control column. One situation where we might use this is severe turbulence, where we just want to hold an attitude, set the thrust and ride it out. In severe turbulence we can't really maintain altitude or airspeed accurately, so this is the best way of doing it. Traffic. Oh Christ, another TCAS R8. Clear of conflict? Yeah, so that's a TCAS R8, guys. That requires immediate, you get on your PFD, you get a little red thing come up, you'd have to then disconnect autopilot, autothrottle, pitch out of it, otherwise you'll end up hitting it. TCAS RAs now, well, all commercial aircraft are fitted with TCAS, and the system's designed, I think it's within 45 seconds you get a TA, which is the amber circle, 25 seconds you get the RA, and what it'll do, it'll tell one aircraft to descend, the other aircraft to climb, and if ATC give you any instructions, you have to ignore them. You tell them unable, TCAS RA, you only follow the guidance from the TCAS. And it just prevents you from hitting the other aircraft. It's a very simple system. It's been used for decades. It works. So that only works if you've got the transponder in TARA, which is this function here. And we've got Mode Sierra. All modern aircraft will have something called Mode Sierra, which means ATC can see every little bit of information about you, your heading, what you've set on the MCP, your position, your speed. So if you're not flying the correct speed, especially when they're sequencing you into somewhere busy, they'll know if you're speeding or cheating. So if they want you to fly 230 knots and you fly 240, they can tell. They tell you off. So yeah, that's in essence how that system works. Giuseppe, do you get to choose what type rating you get, or does the airline just give you one and give you one and you have to take it till you become a captain and move on? Well, it depends who you work for. If the airline only has one aircraft, you can only one type of aircraft, you can only do a type rating on that. I don't work for an airline that has a multi-fleet, so I'm not sure how that would work. I think you bid. I think most people you interview, they give you your fleet, and then you can bid for different fleets. Certainly, talking to a lot of my friends who I went to flight training school with, who work at other airlines, they've moved all over the place. Some go from mostly short haul to long haul. Some people don't like long haul, and then they go back to short haul. I personally, well, in reality, if I'm doing a UK to the Canaries flight 4 hours, it's a very long time to be sat here like this. And if you do that every day for a long time, I prefer doing the shorter days. I like doing the kind of 2-sector, short sectors. We sometimes do a few more than 2 sectors. Do more takeoffs on that, it's more fun. Loretta Cantrew, you asked a few minutes ago, on takeoff, does it matter if I push N1 or do you push TOGA? Push TOGA, which if you're flying the ZIBO mod is programmed with this button here, that ensures you get all the correct flight director guidance, and that will engage N1. So yeah, don't push N1, push the TOGA. But for TOGA to engage, you need to have flight directors on, at least, auto throttle. I don't know if you don't need anything loaded in the FMC course or not. So yeah, flight directors on, auto throttle, and TOGA will work. And it's automatic takeoff or go around thrust settings. William 10121972. What is your professional opinion about MH370? I think onboard fire and diversion in the end, the autopilot kept it on a heading. Yeah. Will we ever know, really? I remember when that all kicked off. Conspiracy theories alike, I don't know. My personal opinion is, well, I reckon that one of the flight crew members hijacked it. Personally, I mean, this is just opinion. Onboard fires do happen, but you would send out the relevant distress frequencies and stuff like that. So I don't know. I can only speculate, and as can everyone. So hopefully, not such a thing will ever happen again. But it's a great shame that, obviously, a tragic incident, that they couldn't, really come to a conclusion with that. A really poor Malaysian Airways. They had 370, and then what was the other one that was blown up over Ukraine as well? So I think they're a great airline, otherwise an impeccable safety record. It's just those two incidents which really affected them. Newsoft 75, did ZIBO remove 2 of the landing light switches? When did they disappear in the real planes? So yes, actually I can show you outside. This version of the mod has, like with all the new NGs that come out of the factory and the Max, it's called High Intensity Taxi and Runway Lighting System. So if I go outside, it might be very loud, sorry about this. You can see if we zoom in a bit, if it would let me. We've got these new LED lights fitted, so you can see there. This is just like with the real aircraft, and this now gets rid of the taxi lights in the nose wheel as well. So it's just a way of cutting costs, the airline, and to bring the NG into the kind of 21st century with the Max. And you can change. ZIBO's got both options available. So if you go to Home, Settings, Features, I think it's Hardware Config. No. display options. Yes, you can choose. I've got the long LED strobes on as well, so they're different. And the next page, yeah, landing lights, LED, and you can choose between that. So if I go halogen, look, you've got the old school retracts back. If I go back to LED, just the fixed landing lights. So yeah, it's ZIBO's worked hard to ensure that you've got both the original NGs and the modern NGs, and he's going to continue showing me new features, or sharing new features, because the airline I work for, we've got old, new, all sorts of 737s, all sorts of lights, and I can just tell him, yeah, we have this is how it works, and then he programs it miraculously and by a miracle, and it just happens to work every time. Malik Davachi, can you say something about WTRIS? This is called Wheel to Rudder Interconnect Trim System, I think. It's not an FCOM 2. It's to do with if you have manual reversion and you lose all the hydraulic systems, the rudder makes an input on the aileron to assist with controlling. Now this all might sound like gobbledygook to half of you, but this is a technical system buried within the aircraft. And basically when you have a complete loss of hydraulic system, you can still fly the aeroplane, but using just the control column and the cables and pulleys attached to the aircraft. But it's very difficult. And what Wheel to Rudder Interconnect Trim System does, it when you make an input on the aileron, it inputs a little bit of rudder just to assist with the turns, and that's completely automated. It's to do with the stall management you're down the computer. But, I think that's how that function works. Awesome. What are the questions we got there? Talked about Wheel to Rudder Interconnect Trim System and some other stuff. How are we getting on? We should probably talk about the second approach soon. I've still got a good half an hour left, so another 10 minutes answering some questions. Let's see who subscribed in the last few minutes. Hasmi Yassin, Leo Aero 19, Aspiring Shanker, beautiful. Creo Designs, Bezzy 3004, The Aviator, and William Harvey have all subscribed. Thank you very much. Pierce Townsend, do you prefer flying up north in the cold or south? Well, I don't really mind. I'll fly whatever I'm rostered to do, but I don't really have any preference. Like I said a few minutes ago, the flights I kind of enjoy doing are the 3 or 4 sector days, more handling, more flying. But I've been all over Europe now, all over the our route network, seen some great places, great scenes and stuff. But no, it's quite cool going somewhere for the first time. It's always a bit more exciting because you've never been there before. And sometimes it's nice to go to somewhere where you're familiar because it's an easy day out. You don't have to learn so much. But if you're flying into somewhere that's quite challenging, you really have to do a lot of preparation in the cruise to familiarise yourself with the approach. And sometimes, well, I certainly do the day before, you know, have a good look at the approach, all the guidance from the airline about how to fly, especially really challenging approaches like circling approaches and anything involving offset approaches. It's worthwhile preparing for. Martino, how much do you have to reduce thrust to mitigate potential turbulence? Well, in light or moderate turbulence, we pretty much leave it as it is. One thing you can do is go to M1 limit. You can select continuous thrusts, which gives you more of a margin. For some reason in the mod though, it's saying 91.3. It shouldn't be that. It should be a little bit higher. I'll mention that to ZIBO. And if you go to the cruise page, you have this Turb M1 limit. Now again, this is way too high. You'd accelerate and exceed VMOMO with this thrust setting, but in reality it's about 70 to 80%. That just manages everything to ensure that you're under control, in a safe speed, and you just ride the turbulence out. So you'd set that, but this isn't calculated correctly yet. I don't know if ZIBO has access to that information to calculate that accurately, or where it is. I'll have to try and find it and let them know. Infinite Flyman, how do you work out the minimums for an airport? Well, it's off the chart, so Avi tab, charts, close this now. Arrival, so the arrival we're flying today, VOR 07, and you'll have down here minimums, okay? And you'll see the minimums for the VOR approach. There's two. There's one at 950 feet and one at 1060. And they're based off something called the missed approach climb gradient minimum requirement. And this we use I use a table to calculate, or we've got the Boeing onboard performance tool. And this is based single engine, so in the event of an engine failure, you need to ensure that you can accurately fly a missed approach from minimums. Now, if for performance reasons we can't manage the really shallow, that's ridiculously shallow. There's no aircraft that could have a minimum of 3.5 unless you're in an Antonov with 6 engines with only 1 engine running. We could at least probably do 12. We could set the lowest minimums today, so that would be 950 feet, which is what we'd set. Now actually for a non-precision approach we need to make a correction to this. We had 40 feet, so that's because this height is an MDA, what we call a minimum descent altitude, and we can't actually ever get below 950. So what we'll set today, we'll set it now if you like, is 990, and that is our minimums. And at that height we must be visual with some elements of the approach lining system and or runway to be able to continue the approach. So we'll set that now, 990. That way I won't forget later as well. Oops. Radio minimums is something, oh my goodness me, it's very fiddly this. Radio minimums is something completely different. Oh crikey, this is really sensitive. Unfortunately, if you push this button, it resets it. It doesn't in real life, it just closes it and then reopens it. So we'll set 990 again now. There we go. Awesome, and I've got the sync feature on, so it sets the first officer side too. Okay, so what we'll do now, so about 25-30 minutes from descent, we'll get everything set up and ready. I'll talk you through approximately what we'd be doing. So obviously as captain, left-hand seat, pilot flying this sector, I'd hand over control to the first officer and then set up for the approach. And first we need is the operational flight plan. Charts, back, oh no, charts, close this one, we need the OFP. And I want the descent forecast winds for VNAV, so that will be on one of the last pages of the OFP. There we go. This information I need to punch into the FMC as well. Now what I'm going to do is tune the ATIS in Tenerife, so when we get closer that will start coming in, so I need to get the Tenerife ATIS frequency off the chart. So what we'll do this, view charts, approaching the beginning of the star as well. Anyway, it's a massive star into Tenerife South. There you go, 80 frequency 118675. So we'll tune that now. 118675. Oh, it's already pre-tuned. And as we get closer, we can get the weather for more information for the QNH. So initially, we'll just fill in the forecast page. So I'm going to put all these winds in off here. 310, 200 and 100, so we'll copy the information across. So that's the flight levels. Three, 6 at 9. Very gentle winds into Tenerife today. 9 knots and 100, 1.77 at 8. There we go, so that's all in. We can get the QNH one. I'm just going to do on my phone here, just literally open up an app to check the weather in Tenerife. Don't have this liberty online in the real aircraft, but I do because I'm at home. So what we could do is open the app, find Tenerife. Just want to find the QNH. And it says 070 at 17 knots, so winds down the runway. Wind shear reported in Tenerife. Interesting. Interesting. Hopefully I won't get that in the simulator today. and a few clouds, 26 degrees, 1016. So firstly we can preset the QNH here. But yeah, they've reported wind shear. That's on the METAR at the moment into Tenerife. Execute. And the ice deviation, what's the temperature? It's here, it's -2, and the temperature in Tenerife is 26, so that's +10. Take the average, -2, so it's about +6. 6 slash. There we go. So the descent forecast page is now correctly inputted into the FMC. Now we are going to review the approach as well. So I'm going to step through now, give you a little bit of a briefing of what we're going to do. So here we are. This is the arrival we're going to fly. Fortunately, this chart isn't supported by moving maps, but we're going to start off at Comba. We're there very shortly. We're going to route to Gurkha, then Brick, Araco, Ganta, Bamel. And the Bamel's the initial approach fix for the approach, okay? Now, I'm not going to fly all the way to Araco. I'm going to do exactly what would happen if you're flying into Tenerife South. You get a massive shortcut either to Ganta or Bamel as you route down here. And this is going to give us a high energy situation, so we'll leave it as it is. I'll show you how we deal with that with a high energy approach above flight level 100. Then when we get to Bamel, we are going to go from here, fly this DME arc, 10 miles, 2,600 feet VOR approach, and then we'll intercept at 265 radial 074 inbound to Tenerife. We're going to step down all these heights, 2,600, 2,100, down to the missed approach point. Minimums have already set, 990 feet, RVR required. Category C aircraft is 2,400 metres, not circling today. Tenerife, guys, is always a bit wind sheary. It's just the way with the terrain's positioned and the geographical location of the airport. So there's a warning here from Jefferson, and it's the same on the charts we use it. Positive wind shear any time the wind is in excess of 15-30 knots below 1,600 feet. Wind shear is a massive threat to aviation. We have a manoeuvre to apply if we're ever in wind shear. We'll call it reactive wind shear warning, which is basically firewall the thrust lever and get out of there following the flight directors. And we have a predictive wind shear system, which is designed to give us a avoiding action to keep clear of wind shear. So one to avoid wind shear, one which is actually in wind shear. But hopefully we won't have any issues today. So that's how we're going to fly it. Okay, and then performance-wise, here's runway 07. We'll vacate at Bravo 4 or Bravo 5, and it's a very simple taxi. It'll be Tango in via Delta 6. One of the stands in front of the terminal. So that's essentially the briefing. Alright, what we need to do then is just punch all these figures into the MCP and make sure the FMC is correctly loaded. So, just make sure I've shut the charts. We've got the final approach track, which I need to set, which was 073. So I'd recommend, if you've got the charts app or access this chart, because it's easier for me not to leave it open, just show you what I'm setting. That's the final approach track onto the runway. Don't set the heading yet. The VOR we need to tune, which is 116.4. And of course we've done minimums, we've set 990, and that is essentially it. The only thing we need to do is step through it, make sure the FMC is correctly coded accurately. All the information's there. So there's Araco, which we're not going to get to. We're already inbound to Comba. We're actually about to just start the star now at Comba, but we're now officially on the star, but we're still at 266 miles away. It's a huge star into Tenerife South. So stepping through, if you remember Bamel, 6,000 feet, and the only thing I want to do is put a speed restriction here to slow us down for the arc turn. So I'm just going to put 220 knots or below here. Which is there, execute, step. Here's the intercept for the arc, and then we intercept the 265 radial Juliet waypoint, which is 20 miles, because Juliet is the 20th letter of the alphabet. And you can see here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Oh, 10 miles, I can't even count today. 10th letter of the alphabet, not 20. 2,600 to step down altitude, intercept the final approach track, and then we'll descend in VNAV down to the missed approach point, which is MD07. The missed approach, if I actually bring the chart back up again, check this carefully, it's climb on 073 to 5,000 feet, and then a right turn max 220 knots to the VOR at flight level 70 to join the hold. Make sure that's correctly coded. We've got 5,000 feet, back to the hold, Tenerife, flight level 70. So all the information, the FMC is good, we can fly this approach accurately. Now, it's a non-precision approach, so we discuss in reality what mode you'd use, LNAV, VNAV. We're going to configure flap 1 before 10 miles, flap 5, gear down flap 15 around 4 or 5 miles, or something like that. I'm going to use flap 30 today for landing performance. Actions with visual, we'll disconnect the automation. Actions not visual, we'll fly the missed approach. And the only thing, if you've watched my streams and tutorials, we like to put fix rings in for situation awareness. So this will be the point where we must have flap 1 selected, and we must select gear down flap 15 no later than 4 miles. That's it, performance-wise. We'd use the OPT app to both independently calculate performance, but we're just going to simply work out our landing weight first. So we currently have 3.8 tons on board, arriving in Tenerife with 2.6. So the difference is 1.2, alright, and we have 2.1 for reserves, so we'll at least 500 kilos extra fuel before we need to decide to divert to our alternatives. So yeah, 1.2 tons to burn. So our landing weight is going to be 62.8, which I've subtracted from 64. Okay, there we go. That's our actual landing weight. So we're going to use flap 30 and auto brake 2 and idle reverse thrust, taxi apron I've already briefed, and that is it. Okay, all we're going to do is simply fly the approach and briefed as we've done, hopefully as realistic as possible. Alright, and at that point we would then complete the descent checklist. Captain will get back control, pilot flying, and read this. So pressurization, land out sets, anti-ice off, approach brief and fuel we've discussed, and IS out bugs. Yes, we've got the VREF, minimums, QNH sets, and that's all the checklist complete. Right, I kind of neglected all the comments there. There's been quite a few coming up there, but I do notice Ishandi has just donated a currency I'm not sure, I've put 40 of whatever it is, thank you so much. And he says, how's the breeze up there? Had your in-flight meal? Breeze is fine, nice and gentle, and I haven't had my in-flight meal yet, although I am getting quite hungry, but I've leaving my own sup until after the stream, so that's it. Thank you very much for the comment. So, we're all ready for the approach really, and top of descent still a while out, 126 miles, so 23:33, about 15 minutes or so, and I don't know if we can see it yet, but looking out the window, what we'll hopefully see very shortly, you could just about see it. See if we zoom in there, see that mountain? That is Tenerife. Okay, this is exactly how you see it in real life, just coming out of the mist visibility. So there we are. It's our destination is within view. Cool. So guys, I'm just going to get one more quick drink and toilet break, and when we get back into the descent, I'll be with you again, and I'll just answer some questions prior to top of descent before it gets busy again. So I'll be back in about 3 or 4 minutes or so. Okie dokie, so here we are, back again, nice and refreshed. Hopefully we'll start picking up the 80s soon. In reality, it does take a long time in Tenerife South because obviously the mountain's blocking it. So I saw someone actually named the mountain for me. I always forget. Yes, Bruce Bent. Sorry, it's the mountain Tied. Is it Tied? I don't know how to pronounce that. Sorry. In fact, the highest mountain in Spain. But yeah, it's MSA coming into here is really high. It's 14,500 feet. Get rid of the flying plan now, and actually during the approach we'll have the charts open here. Arrival, we'll have the Comba 4 Golf initially. So you can see where we are. We're currently routing direct to Gurkha, just about to overfly Gurkha, which is here. So it's all looking good. And then, yeah, we never, I've flown into Tenerife so many times, I've never been to Araco. It's really far out into the Atlantic. We usually get a shortcut to Ganta and then Bamel as we get closer. It's a massive start, but I guess if it's really busy, they keep you on the routing for a little bit longer. Right, let's have a look at some of these comments. Loads of us missed here. William 10 12 1970, time for a smoke. No, I did smoke a long time ago, but I gave that up years ago, so I didn't actually go off there, just have a quick drink. Mattia Rinaldi, hi, is there any difference between an ILS Yankee, Zulu Whiskey or anything else, and what would you fly in a normal situation? So yes, certain approaches will have different identifiers, Yankee, Zulu, Whiskey, and that's because they usually have different ways to approach that particular navigational aid. For example, an ILS, you can fly over the airfield on a procedural approach, you can either be radar vectored, and some will have also different missed approach points or waypoints, and depending on what is in use, you know, you'll listen to the ATIS and it will tell you it's Whiskey, Zulu or Yankee, and then once you've heard it's that, you just program that into the FMC. And also airlines, well certainly ones I've worked for, they provide something called briefing packs which explain, yes, you can expect ILS whatever at this time on this approach, or you can expect from, if you're coming in from the east, to fly this approach, so you have a rough idea what to expect when you get to the airport. Chamberlain 1, thank you very much for the $1 tip. That's very generous to you. Really appreciate that. Any money invested goes straight back into the channel, buying new software and scenery and things like that for you to utilise and enjoy in the future. So I appreciate that. Thank you very much, my friend. Captain Yazin, what's the most difficult real approach you've ever done? That one that made you sweat? One of the most difficult approaches I've ever done is actually not too far off where we're going now, is Lanzarote. Runway 21 to Lanzarote is very, very challenging because you can't use VNAV. It's VOR approach. It's been a long time since I've flown it. VOR approach, you can't use VNAV because the way it's coded, it'll put you into a mountain. So you have to use vertical speed. Use VNAV initially and then vertical speed approach, and then the minimums, it takes you to a point about 3 miles to the runway, and then you have to hand fly for a very tiny 2 hills. Either side the wings are below the hills and then onto the runway, and you have to fly a little bit higher. That's really challenging. I've actually it's a captain's only landing, so I've never actually flown it myself. I'm only a first officer, but when the captain flew it, I was pretty sweaty, he was pretty sweaty. Hard work, you know, but no, that's what we're trained for, all the guidance we have. I've done the Salzburg circling approach. That's pretty tricky. But none of them really make me super sweaty or apprehensive. We're trained to deal with it. We've got all the information there. We just plug it in there and fly it. So that's it. Cool. So Tenerife's really coming into view now. Now routing direct to Brick, which is just here. Then after Brick, we'll go to Araco, but like I said, we're going to give ourselves a shortcut to Ganta, probably when we pass around 25,000 feet, which is pretty much when they give it to you in real life. And we'll be talking to Canaria's radar reality now, so we have an idea of what the star is, if we're number 1, can we expect any shortcuts, and we'd modify our descent planning accordingly. Mathieu Rinaldi, cheers again, talking about the terrain radar. Is there a physical random that looks like terrain around, or is the terrain loaded by the air rack? Well, it's the terrain database is in the, I think, FMC. Oh, I'm not sure actually, but it's coded within the aircraft. So if you select terrain, all this is, I think it's just in the EGPWS system. It knows where all the terrain is, and that database is, you have all the different colours, so red means you're more than 2,000 feet below the terrain, green you're more than 2,000 feet above it, amber 500 to 2,000 feet above. And that's what it's based off. It uses that and it reacts accordingly. So it also has radio altimeter inputs as well, so if you have a very high rate of descent with the radio altimeter close to the ground, you get sync rate pull-up warning. So it's based by both terrain and weather radar. So yeah, the system is very reliable, and it must be adhered to. So if you've got a terrain caution, you know, you can manoeuvre the airplane away, but a terrain warning, like I said earlier, that's a terrain pull-up. Regardless if you're fully visual and VSA, you have to do certainly where I work, the terrain escape manoeuvre. You have to firewall the thrust lever, pitch up to 20 degrees, you know, just better safe than sorry, climb to the MSA. That stuff is very rare. I can't, well, I've not heard of any instance of any terrain warnings I know of, so only ones that generally are very famous as, you know, air crash investigation videos. But training has changed an awful lot in the last 20 years to how we teach pilots to react in these situations. And for example, Air France 447, there was a large kind of overhaul with how aircraft stall recovery is in this environment. It's very different stalling this aircraft to, say, a Cessna, and also it's very different depending on what phase of flight. Like stalling up here at 35,000 feet, the aircraft behaves extremely differently compared to, say, a stall at 3,000 feet. So those sort of tutorials I've been thinking about doing, but because I know line pilots and training pilots watch these videos, although I tell people not to follow the guidance here, those are the sort of things I don't want to show. I'd rather you follow the guidance of your airline follows on the QRH instead of me showing you. But I'll always do tutorials on the sectors and difficult approaches, but I probably won't have them on things like stalls and wind shear escapes and train escapes, because they're very sensitive to how the pilot reacts to that. So I don't want to be explaining what to do in case it's wrong or I make a mistake. Pre-ADAC, how much of a difference is allowed between the EGT before you need to take action? Not really much at all, and the engines are of different ages typically. So M1 and N2 is pretty much usually exactly the same, but the EGT can vary, like it is now, by a few degrees, as can the fuel flow. Certain engines, one engine usually burns more than the other. In fact, you can see here, fuel quantities are slightly different. That's pretty normal actually, and I don't know if ZIBO has actually programmed one engine to burn slightly more fuel, but that's quite typical of what you can expect. Alright, so someone... Right, I get super chat donations, which are really generous, and I get donations through Streamlabs. And so, Koshinzo's just donated $26, which is really appreciated. So thank you so much for that. Thank you for imparting your knowledge. It's greatly appreciated. You're absolutely most welcome, and the donation is greatly received. So thank you. Really appreciate that. I'm always like, how do I react to that? I never expect stuff like this. Reinvested in the sim it will be for your continued enjoyment and learning. So thank you very much again. Cool. So a little bit of weather coming up. Approaching top of descent. 33 miles, 5 minutes. This is where it gets all exciting. really see much else. It's looking a bit jagged, but I guess as we get closer it won't look so square. There are some limitations of a desktop simulator. Zoom in a bit. Oh, another bit of traffic there. Only 900 feet above us. Might actually see that. I need to turn the AI traffic off. I don't know anything about it. See Mufferman, hello my friends. Just finished work, 7 load sheets today, tired hands. The life of a dispatcher, hey? Yeah, I wouldn't know how to fill in a load sheet if I tried, I've completely forgotten. Where's that traffic gone? So, trying to see where it is, no idea. Anyway, try not to get distracted from the task in hand. Right, so let's just have a look at the star again, just to show you where we are. Just, I know it doesn't support the charts, but we're going to go to Araco initially, but as I said, as we get to around 25,000 feet, we're going to route direct to Ganta and then Bamel, and I'll put it slightly high, and I'll just show you how we fix that by using some other pitch modes like level change. And then when we get onto the approach, I probably won't use the Navigraph overlay so much because I'll forget it's on, and then you won't see what I'm doing. So we'll use the actual EFB. I've copied the charts into the ZIBO EFB from my Navigraph subscription as a PDF, so you can use that. But that's what we're going to do essentially. Madman, what do you do when you get information that there will be loads of birds flying over departure runway? Do you maybe turn on flight engine mode or just wait for them to fly away? Well, there's not much we can do really. Some airports have a tendency to have more birds than others. Bird strikes do happen. I've had several bird strikes in the last 6 years, some of them very minor, some of them have actually caused damage to the aircraft. So depending on the severity of the situation, most likely we continue the approach. In fact, the recommended practice is, if you were to fly through a flock of birds at 500 feet, is that you continue, because if you were to decide to go around and then fly through the flock of birds, you can have a higher thrust setting, more likely to damage the engine. So it is deemed to be safer to continue through the bird strike if you were to see a flock of birds, say, at low approach. Yeah, it's just one of those things in aviation. It must cost airlines billions a year, billions in repair costs and stuff. So I've probably had a dozen. Most have just bounced off, clean it up. They have to do a bird strike inspection afterwards to make sure it's not gone in any of the important bits. I've had some go through the engine as well, where you can actually, it does genuinely smell like chicken. Like if it goes through the core of the engine, it smells like KFC. So you know if it has gone through the core, that aircraft is very much grounded if that happens. And then you have to do something called a boroscope inspection to make sure all the turbine blades well within the core are not bent or damaged. So, here we are, approaching top of descent, reset MCP altitude, contact Canarius, radar, flight data sim, request descent. Alright, so, just going to set flight level 250 initially, and we'll push out of vent, so the aircraft will initiate its gentle descent at 1,000 feet per minute until it captures the profile. Alan Davis, does the ZIBO handle better in crosswinds now? Yes, not quite. I need to do some more testing with that. I haven't heard from Twerkster for a while, but at the moment, at low speeds, the aileron isn't quite giving us the needed response, and I don't know if it's to do with the X-Plane 11 flight model, the way it handles ground effects and things, but anything over 20 knots is pretty challenging in the mod. I mean, it's challenging in real life over 20 knots, and you do sometimes have to make some quite large inputs, but nothing that's it's something I need to work on, but I want to do a tutorial on that. But yeah, if you try one at 20 knots still crosswind now, it's going to be a challenge for you. It's doable, but hopefully it's something which we'll work on fixing in the future. Big Perm, finger licking good, exactly, as the Colonel would say. Cool. So here we are. So in VNAV path, see the speed slightly running away. That is normal. Okay. Doesn't always run away like that, but remember, as I've told you all before, VNAV path, it only cares about this, doesn't care for the speed. Just carefully monitoring that, make sure it doesn't approach VMO. If it does, we'll probably revert to level change, or use a bit of speed brake to keep the speed under control. But yeah, this can happen. Right, passing flight level 300, bank angled at 25 degrees, and we'll give ourselves that shortcut. Probably approaching 25,000 feet direct to Ganter, which will leave us high. See what it looks like out the window. It's out to the sea. Oops, don't know what my buttons are. There we go. That's for a passenger on the left-hand seat. It's got a good view of Tenerife this evening. This is. I remember when I was using Sim 15 years ago. I loved these sort of views, like having the immersion and stuff. It's so cool. Robbie, for a pilot in the UK, do I need A-levels? I went to a college for a BTEC in aviation operations. I don't know if I've messed up my career path. You don't need A-levels. You need a minimum 6 GCSEs. A-levels preferable. I've got 3 A-levels, none of them to do with aviation. History, English and law, because I did not want to do maths and physics at A-level. You know, it just wasn't my strongest topic. So no, certainly not. You should look around. I'd recommend, you know, brush up your basic maths skills, science skills. But yeah, look around. There's a lot of good guidance available from the flight training schools. So VNAV's reverted to the indicated airspeed, that's normal. Again, we're following the path. The target speed for cost index 30 is 273 knots. Drag required, that's because we're more than 10 knots above our target speed. Cool, so 1 to go. Let's imagine we've now been cleared to descend flight level 80. And what I'm going to do is give ourselves a shortcut direct to Ganter. Alright, which is going to leave us very high. Watch this, okay? So, flight sim, you're now number 1, route direct to Ganter. It's a typical clearance. Okay, watch this. Watch the VNAV profile, execute. 5,000 feet high, okay? Watch what VNAV does. VNAV goes, ah heck, we're high. It's going to pitch down, and it does not care about the speed. So, see the rate of descent increasing? So we don't want to stay in VNAV, because if we do, it'll happily push us towards VMO. So what we're going to do is revert to level change, and we're going to update and fly a higher speed. So at high altitude, we increase our descent speed to recapture the profile. So we're going to set 320 knots. This is exactly what I'd be doing in real life if this sort of shortcut happened to me. And then we'll update our target speed in the FMC as well. So we're going to put 320 knots, and that will help build a new profile. There you go, you see the VNAV path. Oh, it jigs slightly. It should go the other way. I don't know why it's now saying 7,000 feet high, but that's pretty high. And we'll just monitor this for a second. If we need it, we will use speed brake, but at the moment it's looking okay for now. What have we got there? 01, 44, so about 15 minutes to landing.
Tenerife,
we'll put the seatbelts on, and here comes the ATIS, so we'll listen to that.
Zulu weather. Wind 070 at 20.
Ooh.
Visibility more than 10.
So 20 knots.
Sky conditions 4,500 few.
Few
Temperature
clouds. 26 degrees. QNH.
Area QNH 1016.
So 1016.
Arriving runway
Good.
07.
Runway
Departing
07.
runway 07. Advise on initial contact. You have Charlie.
Okay, information Charlie. We've copied and received. So wind down the runway, 20 knots, few clouds. Temperature 26, and the QNH is 1016. So very similar to the METAR. ATIS usually comes in a little bit earlier, but maybe it's to do with the terrain. But there we go. There's Tenerife. And for any Spanish viewers, I think this is La Gomora. It's a beautiful view if you're coming into Tenerife South, seeing that island there. So we're getting really high actually. I've been a bit distracted, so I'm going to use speed brake now, definitely to flight detent, which will help us get down quicker. And there's, yeah, this is normal. High rates of descent like this are completely normal. And don't mind me guys, but I will be turning off the alerts now, just to stop those going off as we fly the approach. So that is now off. Cool. So descending 80, 320 knot speed brake gives us about 4,500 feet per minute. As a passenger in the back, if you imagine here looking out the window, you wouldn't realise we're doing that sort of rate of descent. It's completely comfortable and well within limits. Awesome. So going to continue towards Ganter. We usually go direct to Bamel as well, but we are very high. I just want to manage that. The profile's coming in really quickly now because we've got 320 knots of speed brake. Usually wouldn't come in quite this quickly, but I think that's just to do with the way the profile's built, the new profile based on the speed. Awesome, so I'm just going to go to Avitab charts, and we want VOR 07, and we'll make reference to this on the approach, and when we get to BAML, I'll explain what the aircraft's doing. Cool, so what we're thinking about next is flight level 100, 250 knots, so we're going to try and time this. So we can bug back and get to 250. We're pretty much capturing the profile quite nicely. It's beautiful. It's all Ortho 4XP. Obviously the sun setting and a little bit of mist. It doesn't look completely clear, but that's the life of using live weather. So we'll bug 250 knots now because we don't want to go above that speed below 100. Still keep the speed brake extended because I need to bleed off all this speed. This aircraft, as I said, is very difficult to go down and slow down. In fact, I'm just going to go VS and set about 900 feet per minute just so we don't get below 100 going too fast. Yeah, a lot of people asking about the ATIS. I only found that out a couple of days ago. It's completely default. Just tune the ATIS from the chart. And it works. If not all the airports, but it seems to do it for most of them. So I'm just going to really gently bring that rate of descent back, so I don't want to go faster than 250, and then we're actually looking good for the profile now, so I can definitely stow the speed brake. And we're now routing direct to BAML, which is the initial approach fix just here on the charts. Awesome, we can now re-engage VNAV. It should level off. We'll do 1,000 feet per minute at least, and then recapture the profile, then start descending. Pretty much timed that well enough. 250 knots. There we go. So again, VNAV path, it's going to be pitching to that vertical profile, so it's going to capture that again, and then just descend with idle thrust. So, passing flight level 100, we could do the post-cruise check. So, lights on, APU is off, pressurization is set, verify we've got the seat belts on, and recall. Post-cruise check's complete. So VNAV is getting a little low again, so it's just doing 1,000 feet per minute, which is correct, it should be doing this. I'm just going to go VS 300 just to help it recapture the profile, and then we'll go back to VNAV. And imagine we've now contacted Tenerife approach, and they've cleared us now to descend to 6,000 feet, which is typically what they would do, because at BAML that's the holding altitude. So we'll now set that on the MCP, 6,000 feet, and we can now select the QNH because it's an altitude, which is 1016. Looking good. Passing altitude 9,300 for 6,000 feet. And the standby altimeter. Oh, I forgot to set standard on the way up, but never mind. Standby altimeter is set. Good, so we can now re-engage VNAV. VNAV path. This should go to retard arm. There we go. ZIBO's done such a good job programming this to work correctly. It's really good. Awesome. So, here's a decel point. This decel point is for us to go from our target speed 240 knots to 220 knots, which is the speed I put in at BAML. And at BAML, we're going to be flying this arc here, 2,600 feet, 10 miles, the Juliet waypoint for the 10 miles. And even though the ZIBO mod has straight lines, it flies the arc perfectly. So I'll actually show you the Navigraph overlay to show you how it is working correctly. Awesome. So approach checklists, we could do that now because we've got the VR tuned. Frequencies we have, fixings are in, idents for Tenerife South VOR are good, standby instruments are set, the courses inbound 073 are set. We then read the approach checklist on the control column, so altimeter instruments set and cross-checked, and the approach aids checked and set. The approach checklist is complete. So as we approach the decel point, it should go automatically to 240 to 220. See if that happens. There we go. Decal's gone. Next decal point's generated. 220 knots. And it should pitch up slightly now to ensure that we're doing 220. We'll just monitor that to ensure it does that correctly. So I'm struggling a little bit to bring the speed back, so I'm just going to use a bit of speed brake again, just to ensure that we're doing 220 knots. And if I show you the charts, there you go, you can see we've just come into the interactive Navigraph chart, approaching Bamel there at 12 miles. Cool. So what we're going to do is, as soon as we're 1 mile before Bamel, we'll set the next cleared altitude. So in real life, if we weren't getting vectors, which you probably would do, but we'll just imagine we've been cleared a procedural approach. They go, flight deck sim, you've cleared the procedural approach, VOR runway 0 SIF, descend with the procedure, report turning final. So we can set the next cleared altitude, which is 2,600 feet on the chart. That will ensure the aircraft doesn't level off. So that is now set. Check it on the chart, 2,600 feet there, so that's checked as well. All looking good. So the speed brake helped, just getting us to 220. In reality, it should pitch up and plan to be at 220 by that waypoint, but just use whatever tools you have in the box to ensure you get it all under control and speed safe. Okay, so here we are on the intercept for the radial, making a right turn onto the 10-mile arc, and we'll monitor that it says 10 miles at Tenerife South. And it's a straight line in the mod, but it is curved. It is flying the curved line in reality, as I'll demonstrate in a second. So that 6-0 restriction left us a little bit high, so you see how it's updated for a new path. That's absolutely correct. It's all looking good. And we're now on this 10-mile arc, and what we're going to do is actually leave it clean for a while, just carefully monitor the speed. And you see this straight line, as I said. Let's now check the chart. You can see that we're perfectly on the 10-mile arc. Absolutely perfectly. Just don't have that depicted as a magenta line. So rest assured the aircraft is reacting as it should be. Good, so just keep the speed brake out for a little bit longer. Just don't want to go much quicker than 230. And there we go. We're now doing this continuous left turn, DME, what we call DME arc turn. We keep turning to keep the distance at 10 miles. Again, just check the chart. Look, you can see perfectly on the arc. Excellent, excellent, excellent. So I'm going to slow the speed brake now. Speed seems well under control, and when we get to the 265 Juliet waypoint, it will turn final onto the VOR approach. Next charted altitude is going to be 2,100 feet here, which will set 1 mile before Delta 265 Juliet. Chart's still up, thanks. I don't always do that. I'm not gonna do it anymore. Sorry, dude. Always doing that. Cool. And look at that, we've not leveled off since we've left the cruise level. Continuous descent all the way. Airline's happy. The airport authority's happy. People living under the flight path are happy. There we go. So here we are turning final. VNAV's put us a little bit low. So what it's going to do, it'll level off, because we're on the approach logic now, I think. So much for what I was saying about CDAs, but it should be correctly coded. And I'm just see how the speed's getting low, so I'm just adding thrust manually because it's in arm. If you didn't do that, FMC speed would engage anyway, and it would automatically do it. So interesting how that's been coded, but not sure why. But still turning final. There's the runway approach lights coming into sight. So approaching 10 miles, we can now select flap 1. Speed into vent, and VNAV path stays engaged on approach logic with the flaps extended, so it's still following the vertical profile. We've got a good headwind on final approach, so we can set the runway heading. So imagine the cabin's secure. Going to go flap 5 because speed's not coming back. That's normal. And now we're approaching the next cleared waypoint, we can set the next step altitude, usually 1 mile before, but we'll set it now. 2,100 feet, that just ensures the aircraft's still descending. Flap 5 selected, speed's nicely coming back to the flap 5 speed. Looking good so far. I need to do a daylight stream so we can really enjoy Ortho 4XP, and one that's not over the sea. Cool, so Tenerife Tower, imagine we contacted them and they've cleared us to land, so we'll put that light on to remind us we've been cleared to land, and we just need to do the landing checklist. Surface winds, I don't think it's changed, still down the runway, around 20 knots or so, so it's a good headwind component. So what we do, we take half of the steady headwind component as our final approach speed, so we won't fly VRF plus 5 today, we'll fly VRF plus 10 as it's plus 20 knot headwind. So it's built quite a shallow profile here, about 450. It's usually a little bit steeper, but it's still descending. It's just bringing thrust up to maintain the flat 5 speed. And then Tenerife South, this VOR here, that's the final approach fix. So we literally fly right overhead the VOR and then descend on a 3.13 degree path. So terrain's noted, and as we fly over the VOR, which we have tuned, you'll see the needles swing over. They'll go whoosh like this. And that's exactly how we do this in real life. So we'll configure about 4 or 5 miles. Actually, that's the point. You see the VOR there? Has actually got the VOR. Look, you see that here? That is what a VOR looks like. They've actually modelled the VOR. That's awesome. There you go. There is the VOR station. You can see that on approach into Tenerife. So now set the minimums plus 100 feet, which is 1,000 feet. We'll verify we've got VNAV PAF speed windows open. And as soon as we pass the final approach fix, we'll disconnect. We'll do the landing checklist, disconnect, and this will be a flight director off landing. So passing the final approach fix, we make sure we're at the right height, 2,100 feet. So here we are, Tenerife South, 2,100 feet, bang on. So FAF checks, over the beacon we go, there's the needle swinging, and we're now descending on the final approach path. So we'll configure now, get out, flat 15, landing checklist, do flaps, start switch is continuous, recall checked, speed brake arm green light, landing gear, down 3 green, order brake set to 2, just holding on the landing flap. To match the speed. And we can now, we'll just delay the landing flaps sliding, so we're all looking pretty stable. There we go, so select landing flap now, flap 30, final approach speed is going to be VRF plus 10, so 155. And we can now set the missed approach altitude, which was flight level 70. So that's now set. Flaps, we've got 30 green light, landing lights on, checklist complete. We are cleared to land. So, here we go. Just get ready to disconnect everything. Approaching minimums, which is the green bar. We're visual anyway, so we can continue. And that's how you fly the VR approach runway 07 into Tenerife.
Approaching minimums.
Roger. Okay, let's disconnect everything. Flight director's off.
Minimums.
Continue. We've got 3 reds. I'm already fixing that straight away, pitching up slightly. Give myself about 500 feet per minute. There we go. We can now go back to around 1 degree altitude, 750 feet per minute. It's a little bit too steep there. Back to 3 reds. Whoops. Oops. I don't know what's happened to our target speed. It's gone off the window, but something for ZIBO to fix. 3 reds, so my target speed is bugged incorrectly. I'm not sure why. 2 reds, 2 whites. Back onto the vertical profile now. Getting a bit slow on speed actually. Hey, wind's pretty much down the runway today.
400.
Speed back under the control, back to about 57%.
300.
Just a little bit of crosswind from the
200.
right, it's drifting ever so slightly. Speed's good, a little bit more thrust.
100.
Over the threshold around 50 feet.
50. 40. 30.
Check. Close. A little bit of left rudder for the centre line. There we go. Touchdown. Speed brakes up. Reverses. Just going idle reverse today. Oh, water brake's pretty powerful, so I'm going to get that off. Water brake off. That wasn't too bad. 100 knots. Just coasting along now. 80 knots. Start manual braking. 60 knots. Cancelling reverse. And here's the first rapid exit taxiway, which we said we'd take anyway. And ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Tenerife. Flight time 2 hours exactly from Lisbon. Interesting wiggly green taxi lights there. Vacating the runway. Bring the taxis. We're 10 knots for the turn, so we'll just slow it right down. Steady. Weather radar off. I always forget to do that in my stream, so I'll remember to do that now. Cool. Start cleaning up. So speed brake up, flaps up. Water brake to off. Engine off. FD's off. 7-1. I don't know what happened. So yeah, you saw the missed approach point. The VNav logic went a bit weird, and then we got a new bug target speed as well. So I'm not sure what happened there. Feed that back to ZIBO. He's probably watching anyway. Get the alerts back on. And from what I understand, ZIBO will now be releasing this version of the mod, which I've just tested, the pre-release version, which you should hopefully see available in the next few minutes or so. So you can see how it works. But obviously there was a little issue with the missed approach point there. Not sure what happened, but it's pretty cool nonetheless. So we'll take the first right here. Get the APU started. We'll have a look at the replay of the landing, see how it actually looks. It's pretty cool. Oh, well that definitely is in Tenerife in real life. a neon interactive X-plane sign. Fantastic. Obviously, the developers have paid Tenerife South Airport to promote this excellent simulator. Cool, so we'll just pick a random place to park. Looks like someone's pushing back already. Awesome. There you go. Nice time to land actually, with the sunset. So we'll need to get, I need to do a live stream during the day and somewhere nice like the Alps, so we can really appreciate Ortho 4XP for all its beauty. So APU's still not quite ready. And we'll just pick a stand here on the right. Let's go for this one here. Cool, so we put the APU on the bus. Awesome. I need to, yeah, someone messaged me on Facebook saying I want to get the jetways moving. Like, I remember the old school Control J in FSX. How do you get that to join up? Just for further realism and immersion. So there should be a marsher there. I'll guess he's marshalling me incorrectly. We'll just bring it to a stop here. There we go. Cool. Parking brakes set then. We've got 2 blues, 1 red. Engine's dead. Do the full shutdown flow, so open. Oops, don't turn the anti-collision light off, guys, until you're below 20% N2. That's just bad habit. Don't do that in real life, obviously. Window heat off. Cool. That's essentially the shutdown flow, and there we go. Here we are in Tenerife. Nice. And just before I do anything, we then read the shutdown checklist, by the way, once you've done that flow I've just completed, which is here. Not you can easily see it today, put the dome light on. There you go. So you'd read the full shutdown checklist, it's the last flight of the day, and stow that. And then just before we do anything, we'll just have a look at the replay of the landing, which is always fun to do. If I can remember how to do it. Replay mode. A little bit far out there. Let's get you a bit closer. There we go. Cool. See how it was from the outside. This AudioBird XP who does his audios is awesome. It just sounds like the real deal. Here we go, over the threshold. I think there was a slight crosswind today. A little bit left rudder, or a little bit, I put too much rudder in. A little bit too much rudder onto the center. It always looks so much more dramatic from this view. Done better, done worse, but remember what Boeing say, a smooth landing isn't the criteria for a safe landing. That's actually quoted in the flight crew training manual. So there you go, end it there. So guys, that's the end of the stream. I'll just flick through some of the questions we had right at the end. Are you saving the stream? Yes, this will be one of the saved streams available in the playlist, which I think this is the 3rd or 4th official stream I've done. So yeah, there'll be more to enjoy in the future. Quite a few there. Interesting approach. Yes, it was. Wasn't flying. Enjoy the stream. You're most welcome. Quite a few there, but yeah. When I do the streams, I do, as I say, try and answer as many questions as possible. Probably not as many in the critical phases of flight as I'd like to. But yes, ZIBO's now hopefully released for you 3.30F live for you to enjoy the latest version of the mod. But again, thank you very much for joining. I have no idea how many people are watching. I hope you found it interesting. You could try this approach. Again, for real, based on what I just showed you. Nice little flight you can do there as well. And tutorial wise, hopefully get something with you in the next couple of weeks, and then we'll plan the next live stream from there. I wish you all a pleasant evening and an enjoyable week from then onwards, and I'll see you in another stream in the near future. Very good evening to you all.